Yeah, it's a lot going on out here, man. How you feel about Jay-Z and what he going through?
You know, when I look at the Jay-Z sex assault allegation, and I read completely the plaintiff's argument put forth by her attorney, Tony Busby. And right from the gate, Art, I had some very serious concerns about her narrative. First of all, and this doesn't speak to the legalities of the case, this doesn't speak to the moralities of the case, this doesn't speak to the political implications of the case. I'm stepping back from those three for a minute here, and I'm asking a very basic, simple, common sense question. And that is, how in the hell does a 13-year-old girl show up at Radio City Music Hall on September the 7th, 2000 for the Video Music Awards, let alone the after party? According to the complaint, the civil suit, she asked a friend who drove her there and dropped her off. Now, Art, I have a 13-year-old daughter. I have a 13-year-old daughter. Help me understand how anybody's 13-year-old daughter has a friend who's driving who can pick them up without their parents' permission, drive them to Radio City Music Hall for the VMAs. That's the first thing. That's the psychologist in me. That's the educator in me. That's the child advocate in me. How does a 13-year-old know anybody that they can call to pick them up and drop them off at the VMAs? So soon when I saw that, I said something interesting is going on here. So as I read the civil suit paperwork further, I see that she didn't have a ticket to get in, nor should she have because she was only 13 years old. So she says she stays outside the VMAs. She watches the VMAs on a jumbotron. She says she goes over to the limousine row where the limousine drivers are parked, and she runs into one of the drivers for Puff's entourage or so forth. And he tells her that if you stay here or meet me back here after the award show, I have to drop off Puff. I got to drop off his entourage, some other celebrities. And when I'm done dropping them off, I'm going to come back and pick you up. According to the civil suit, the limousine driver told the 13-year-old that Puff likes young girls and you fit the description of the type of young girl that he likes. So I'm going to come back and pick you up. So he comes back, he gets her. He takes her to the after party, wherever that was, and it's not clear whether that was at Puff House or some other location. So she gets into the after party. She sees all these celebrities. They doing drugs, they getting high, being sexually promiscuous, whatever the case may be. She says they give her, Art, what she believes at that time to have been a non-disclosure agreement. So another red flag goes up for me because I'm saying to myself, if you're only 13 years old, how can they give you an NDA? In other words, did you misrepresent yourself as being older than what you really are? Because, Art, everybody knows a minor cannot sign consent for themselves. A minor cannot sign consent for themselves. So if someone in that party gave this 13-year-old child a non-disclosure agreement, that means they were under the assumption that you were an adult and you did not make it clear to them that you were only a child. You didn't make it clear to the limo driver that you were only a child. And also, going back to the limo driver, Art, if he tells you that Puffy is into young girls, you look young, you're the type of girl he would want, doesn't that kind of signal to you that if he's coming back to pick you up, he's not taking you to meet Puff for a music deal. He ain't taking you to meet Puff for an audition. He ain't taking you to meet Puff so you can sing cameo on one of his artist's upcoming songs. He's taking you to see Puff for some kind of sexual activity. He sized you up physically and said you the type of girls he likes. And he wants to take you to the after party. What else can he be talking about, Art, other than some sex? So let's go further. She gets to the after party. She says that there's waitresses walking around giving out drinks. She takes one of the drinks and she starts drinking it. She starts to feel woozy, lightheaded. She gets tired. So she decides to stumble to a room, a vacant room at the party. I'm assuming the party is in a home. She stumbles to the vacant room, Art, and she lays down because she's woozy, and that makes sense. You had something to drink. They said Puffy be spiking his drinks, true or false. That's what's out there. So I can understand that. But here's what I don't understand, Puff. I don't think a 13-year-old girl, or any woman for that point, and of course we're talking about a minor, if you're in a party and you see all these celebrities and they doing drugs and getting high and being sexually promiscuous, if you feeling lightheaded and woozy, why not sit down in the main party area? Why not sit down in the living room or the dance area? Because as you know, Art, there's chairs everywhere at a nightclub. There's chairs everywhere at a home. So why didn't you stay within view of the attendees? Why did you wander down some narrow hallway into an empty room and lay in a room by yourself and you 13 years old? She didn't say somebody led her to the room. She didn't say they asked her to go to the room. From what I read on her own, she ends up in this room. She lays down. Shortly thereafter, Sean Combs and Sean Carter enters the room together with a mysterious celebrity B who is alleged to be a female. So then I'm saying to myself, if Sean Combs and Sean Carter are about to sexually assault an underage female, why would you bring a spectator in to witness your crime? Now, it might not be beyond the realm of possibilities because in that lifestyle, as you and I know, they do a lot of crazy stuff. So maybe they brought celebrity B in there, hoping she would join in on the menage a trois, join in on the orgy, maybe engage in some same-sex activity. Who knows what they had on their mind? But on the surface, Art, I'm looking at these two men. And even though we're talking about a crime that happened 24 years ago, they were still at the top of their game. Jay-Z done already had In My Lifetime Volume 2 that went like 5-6 times platinum. You know what I mean? He was about to drop the blueprint if he hadn't already. You know, Biggie done already joined the ancestors. Mace done already blew up. Puffy is at the top of his game. So they were still the kings of New York 24 years ago. They were still the kings of hip hop 24 years ago. So if you are Jay-Z and Sean Carter, Jay-Z and Sean Combs, Sean Carter and Sean Combs, why would you risk a witness partaking in you sexually assaulting a child? Why bring the witness into the room? I just thought that was a little odd. So anyway, she says Sean Carter assaulted her first, held her down. When he was done, he backed up, and then Sean Combs proceeded to SA her as well, assault her. And then after he SA'd her, he tried to force her to engage in oral sex. She began punching, fighting. She hit him on the neck. Sean Combs backs off. She says she somehow stumbles out of the room, gets her clothes, gets dressed, gets outside. She runs to a gas station. She ends up at the gas station. The gas attendant could clearly see that she's perturbed, she's distraught, she's bewildered, she's traumatized. The gas attendant allows her to use the telephone. She calls her father. Now, this is important, Art, because now you're implicating your father. You're implicating someone else in this now. She says she called her father. The father comes and picks her up. She admits that she tells her father that she lied to get down to Radio City Music Hall to attend the Video Music Awards and or the after party. Now, let me stop right there. If the father is still alive, rest in peace if he is not. If the father is still alive, Art, he's going to be subpoenaed to take the stand. He's going to have to testify. What did your daughter say when she called you? Did she call you? What did you say to her? How did you respond? How long did it take you to get to the gas station to pick her up. And the bigger questions are, the bigger question for the father, why didn't you drive your daughter to a hospital or to the police precinct to make a report? Why did you all go home? Did you take her to the police precinct for a police report, criminal complaint on the two most popular men in the hip hop industry? Or did you take her to a hospital to make sure she was safe, that she hadn't been harmed or hurt, broken bones, STDs, whatever the case may be, a rape hit? And if he took her daughter home, Art, I believe that's going to seriously undermine their argument, because what black father you know, you, me, or the brother down the street, if our daughter tells us she was assaulted and we go pick her up and we can tell she not right, we doing one of three things. We going to the police, we going to the hospital, or we going back to the after party and we about to turn it out. Do you feel me, Art? Them the only, there's no other option. This is my 13-year-old baby. My 13-year-old baby got SA'd by Sean Carter, allegedly, and Sean Combs, allegedly. And I don't drive her to the hospital. I don't drive her to the police precinct to make a report. And I don't show up with her uncles and cousins to the after party to turn it out. Something don't look right. So then we go further, Art. We go further. 24 years pass. 24 years. Y'all don't do nothing. Y'all don't say nothing. Now, don't get me wrong, Art. If she was an adult woman, I could understand her having to deal with her trauma before she comes forward. But she was a child. She was a child, which means it's up to her parents to press charges. It's up to her parents to get an attorney. It's up to her parents to make the police report. So, as a mother and father, why didn't you seek legal justice for your child? These questions are going to come up. Now, in the civil suit paperwork, Art, according to Tony Busby, what he read, her attorney based in Houston, Texas, according to the civil suit, she demands a jury trial. That really caught me, Art. I was surprised at that. She's demanding a jury trial. Why am I surprised? Because, Art, if she's demanding a jury trial, she's going to have to take the stand. She has to testify. Remember, the only people who can plead the fifth are the people being accused of the crime. Jay-Z can plead the fifth. Sean Combs can plead the fifth because they are the defendants. She is bringing the case. So do you know what that means? She's going to have to take the stand, Art. And I'm saying to myself, are you sure you want to do this? If it's not true, and it could be true. I want to be honest about this. I don't know if she's telling the truth or not. I'm going to look at this from both sides. And if the sister is telling the truth, Art, I pray to God she get every penny she wants. I pray to God that those who assaulted her get the worst karma that's out here in the universe. Nobody should ever abuse a child. There's nothing worse than a sexual assault of a woman. There's no crime worse than the sexual assault of a woman. There's no crime worse than the abuse of a child. And when you combine them, Art, sex assault of a female with sex abuse of a child, that's the worst crime on the planet Earth. So if that lady is innocent, I pray to God she get all the help she's entitled to. I pray to God she get every penny that she's suing for, and any karma that comes to those who are responsible for that, they deserve it. So I will never defend anybody against injustice. But if she is fabricating this story, Art, it's going to come out on the stand. The lawyers are going to put her up there, Art, and they're going to try to make her look like she's some kind of promiscuous, money-grabbing, stereotypical inner-city young girl. They're going to ask her, were you a virgin until September 7th, the year 2000? How many men did you have sex with before September the 7th, the year 2000? They're going to ask her, were you part of a sex ring? Did you have a pimp? Was it your pimp who dropped you off at Radio City Music Hall and not some friend of yours? How many 13-year-olds have a friend they can call to drop them off? Were you on an assignment by your pimp? They're going to ask her these things. How many partners did you have by that time? And the biggest questions for the attorney are, if I'm for the defense, the biggest question that Tony Busby is going to have to answer are, what material evidence do you have? What 24 years ago, Art, what material evidence do you have to prove that she was ever alone in a room with Sean Combs or Sean Carter? Do you have any video surveillance? I doubt it. Do you have a witness? She said the only other person in the room, Art, was who? Celebrity B. That means Celebrity B is a friend. Celebrity B is a friend of Sean Combs and is a friend of Sean Carter. They not giving them up. Whoever Celebrity B is, I don't see them giving up Puff or Jay. I don't see it. I don't see it. So if it was only 4 of you in this room, and the only person who can testify as to whether or not you were SA'd by Carter and Combs is their friend Celebrity B, Art, what do you have to prove that you were alone with them? Number one, what material evidence do you have to prove you had sex with them? Number two, what material evidence do you have to prove that they assaulted you? Number three, how do we know you was alone with them too? How do we know that you had sex with them too? How do we know you was assaulted by them too? Art, let me draw a parallel. The only way I see, maybe there is some video surveillance from 24 years ago. They said Puffy taped everything. Maybe they could find the tape. That's one thing right there. Number two, the only other thing I could see is if she pulled a Monica Lewinsky. Now, if she pulled a Monica Lewinsky and she has a pair of jeans or a skirt or a dress or a blouse that has Sean Combs's DNA or Sean Carter's DNA on it, Art, that would make sense. Maybe she tucked away the dress she wore and is hanging in a closet somewhere. It's possible. Now, if she got their DNA, she got them. There's nothing to argue here. If that young lady saved the clothing she wore from 24 years ago, and it has Sean Combs's and Sean Carter's DNA on it, she got him. You cannot argue against that. But if she ain't got a Monica Lewinsky dress in the closet, Art, and keep in mind, Monica Lewinsky, her situation got exposed 3 years after her affair with President Clinton. 3 years after the affair, Art, she still had the dress. We're not talking 3 years. We're talking 24 years after the crime. If there's no material evidence, if there's no witnesses, how can she win this case? How can she win this case? Now, I want to go somewhere else with this too, Art. Now, I do have a question. If they were in the room with her, let's say allegedly and hypothetically, Sean Combs and or Sean Carter says, we were intimate with her at the VMA after party that Puff threw on September 7th, the year 2000. Yes, we were intimate with her. We did not SA her. There was no assault. It was voluntary intimacy. We were with her. But because she signed the NDA, because she showed up at the party, because she looked to be an adult, we didn't know that we were committing a crime. Let's just say they say we were with her, but it wasn't SA and we didn't know her age. That's not going to fly, Art. That defense will not work. And the reason it's not going to work for 2 main reasons. Number one, it is your responsibility as a grown man to ensure that you're not having relations with an underage woman. You feel me, Art? It is your legal responsibility as a man to ensure that the woman you're having sexual relations with is not underage. So the fact that they thought she was older, the fact that they presented her with an NDA, that does not absolve them of culpability in this. They're guilty. The other reason is this, Art. I work in schools, right? We all know 13-year-old girls. We got nieces, we got cousins, we got daughters, we got it all. Is it possible, Art, that a grown man can't tell a 13-year-old girl isn't underage? Like for me, Art, I don't know how 16 they look a little older. 16, they may have the whole body of a full-grown woman. We know our women mature faster. We understand that. Then with the hormones they put in the food, they got breasts, they got buttocks, they got it all at 15, 16, 17. I get it. But 13, Art? 13 to me, even if her body is fully developed like a woman at 13, her face, when you look in her face, I don't know how you can mistake a 13-year-old girl for a grown woman. Keep in mind, Art, there is no BBL culture back then. There is no real breast surgery culture back then. There are no fake eyelashes back then. There's really nothing in the year 2000 that a 13-year-old girl could add to herself to make it look like she's older. Now, with that being said, I have had this conversation with some of my female supporters, Art. And some of my female supporters argue, Dr. Umar, these 13-year-old girls out here, if they put on the right makeup and they wear the right clothing, they can easily look 18 and 19. This is what some sisters are saying. I'm still on the other side of the fence, Art. I understand what they're saying. That at 13, you can dress yourself up enough and look grown and fresh enough to be mistaken for 18 and 19. But even if you look 18 and 19, Art, I'm still asking for your license. You feel me? If you 18 and 19, you could be 16 and 17. I need your license. Here's another big thing that's working against Combs and Carter, Art. Another big thing working against Combs and Carter. In most states, and I only know this by working in the schools and being a school psychologist. In most states, Art, statutory rape only applies to 14 and 15-year-olds. I want you to follow me on this. And this is going to be a big piece that they're going to try to use to convict them of this. Well, not convict because this is a civil trial, not a criminal trial. But Art, if Jay-Z is found liable of the civil suit, technically, he may be convicted in the court of public opinion anyway, if you follow what I'm saying. Like if he's found liable, if Sean Carter is found liable to have aided, abetted, or participated in the sexual assault of an underage child, I don't know what kind of career might be left after that. But stay with me. Some people will say, well, Donald Trump was found criminally liable for the rape of a woman just a few years ago, and he still got reelected as president, so anything's possible in America. I get it, but Donald Trump is not a black man. Now, staying on point, here's the issue, Art. In most states in the United States, sexual statutory rape is for 14 and 15-year-old girls, and the boy has to be 4 years older than them. So if your 14-year-old daughter has an 18-year-old boyfriend and you don't like him, you can bring him up on statutory rape. If your 15-year-old daughter got a 19-year-old boyfriend and you don't like him, you can bring him up on statutory rape. In most states are 16 years old. 16 is the age of sexual majority. Once you turn 16, you can pretty much be intimate with whoever you want, and it cannot be considered rape. So 16, they're sexually liberated. I don't agree with that, by the way, but that's white man law in America. 16, they're sexually liberated. 14 and 15, it's statutory rape if the boy is 4 years older than them or the man is 4 years older than them. Now check this out, Art. If the child is 13 or younger, if the child is 13 or younger, it's not statutory rape. It's automatic. It's not statutory sex abuse. It's automatic sex abuse of a child. Because according to the letter of the law, a 13-year-old child, Art, isn't old enough to consent to sex. You feel me on that? The law says if the child is 13, they're not, even if Combs and Carter, allegedly, if they did this, even if they said we had consensual relations with her, it's still considered sex assault, Art, because she's only 13. And in the United States of America, a 13-year-old child cannot consent to voluntary sex because they don't have the psychological resources to understand the verbal contract that they're entering into. So if Puff or Jay said this happened, they automatically are going to be found liable for the sexual assault of this child. And I hope this didn't happen. I really hope that this didn't happen, Art, because first of all, for the child, I hope that this woman who's now 37, 38 years old, I hope that this didn't happen because I don't ever want to see this happen to no female. And we know black women are assaulted more than all other groups of women, and their perpetrators are less likely to be held accountable, Art. But here's another thing that got to be looked at too. Here's another thing that has to be looked at too. From the political side, Art, from the political side, we had Bill Cosby convicted in 2018. We had R. Kelly convicted in Brooklyn in 2021 and convicted again in Chicago in 2022. We had Sean Combs currently held in custody awaiting trial in 2024. And now we got Sean Carter not being accused of criminal behavior, but behavior that could have him found civilly responsible for the abuse of this woman. The point that I'm getting at, Art, that's four. That's four black male billionaires in 6 years. If we just take 2018 to 2024, we have seen a black male billionaire publicly destroyed once every year and a half. A black male billionaire publicly destroyed every 18 months for the past 6 years. Now, even if you believe that these men are no good and they committed this crime, I don't have a problem with that. If they're guilty, they should pay the price. I'm not defending no one who abuses women or abuses children. I want to be clear about that. But if they are innocent, Art, and I do believe Bill Cosby was, I don't believe Puffy engaged in interstate sexual trafficking against people's will. I don't believe that. Sean Carter, I don't know, but I don't believe it. It still remains to be seen. But here's the point that I'm getting at, Art. If these men are innocent of even some of these charges, this clearly speaks to an agenda and a conspiracy to destroy black male billionaires in this country. We only have but so many of them. The only ones left after this, look at this, Art. You got Cosby. He was an elder, but nonetheless, he's the most significant black television figure in the history of American media. Bill Cosby, the first black man with his own TV show. Bill Cosby opened up the door for Richard Pryor. So you got rid of Bill Cosby, or at least you destroyed him publicly. R. Kelly got sentenced to 30 years in Brooklyn, Eastern District of New York Fed Court. Then he picked up another 20 years, Art, in 2022, Northern Illinois Federal District. So he got 30 years in Brooklyn Federal Court, 20 years in Chicago Federal Court. They want R. Kelly to die in jail, Art. He ain't supposed to never get out. He was 54. He was 54. He was 54 years old when he got convicted in Brooklyn. That was September of 2021. You get a 30-year sentence, Art, and you 54. You get out when? 84 years old. They basically telling you joining your ancestors from prison. And then even after that, he gets convicted by another federal court of an additional 20 years in Chicago. So basically, R. Kelly is supposed to join his ancestors from prison. Then you got Sean Combs because he sued Diageo Liquor and started that black political party. And now you got Sean Carter. Who does that leave, Art? That leaves Kanye West. That leaves Tyler Perry. That leaves Tiger Woods. I'm missing one, Art. Who am I missing? Young black billionaires. Tiger and LeBron James. LeBron James. Now check it out. Kanye's still standing, but he was scandalized. He's still standing, but Kanye was scandalized. They tried to break him, though. He just survived it. Tiger Woods, still standing, but he was scandalized. That only leaves Tyler Perry and LeBron James. And if you notice, Art, and I hope both brothers survive it, if they're innocent, I hope Tyler and LeBron survive it. But they're trying to tie LeBron James to the Diddy freak-offs. Right now, they're trying to tie LeBron James to the Diddy freak-offs. And they working on tearing Tyler Perry down. They saying that he has his own surviving Tyler Perry thing where he's allegedly SA'd a bunch of young black male actors and did a whole bunch of other inappropriate stuff. So the point that I'm making, Art, is we have to ask ourselves as black people, as American Africans, is this a pure coincidence that they literally, right now as we sit here and talk, 6 of 8 black male billionaires in America, 6 of 8 of them are either convicted, in jail, could be convicted, or currently going through court for sex assault charges. But you don't see the same thing happening with white males. Now, some people will say, what about Michael Jordan? I'm not including Michael Jordan. I'm not including Michael Jackson. Excuse me. Of course, they assassinated Michael Jackson. I'm not including Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Robert Smith, Oprah Winfrey. I'm not including them, Art, because they're much older. The only person I'm talking about who's older is Bill Cosby. Everybody else is a young black billionaire. Jay-Z is probably the most popular young black billionaire in America. He's far more popular than Puff. Far more popular than Puff. You know what I mean? And his popularity is right up there with maybe a Kanye or LeBron. But the point is, Art, anybody with 2 eyes can tell. There's clearly an agenda here to destroy the black male billionaire, the young black male billionaire. And I'll tell you why they want to do it. Because consciousness is at an all-time high with black people. Our children are learning more, reading more, studying more. They want to make sure that when they drop the hammer on black America, when Donald Trump drops the hammer on black America, they want to make sure that our black billionaires who still have some street credibility, who still have some connection to the hood, they want to make sure they don't bail us out. They want to make sure that the young black billionaire class does not come to the aid of black America when Donald Trump and the American white power structure drops the bomb on black America, the metaphorical bomb on black America. They going after them, Art. Now check this out. I want to go another way with this. Let's talk about the New York City Council's Gender-Based Violence Protection Act. In the year 2000, New York City Council passed this law. It's the Gender-Based Violence Protection Act that protects women who have been the victims of abuse by men. I don't have a problem with that, Art. It's been around since the year 2000. It came out the same year that she alleges that she was attacked. Okay. They've updated this law a couple times. But here's my question to you, Art. When you talk about conspiracy theory, let me throw this at you. Bill Cosby gets convicted in September 18. R. Kelly gets convicted September 2021. 3 months after R. Kelly's 2021 conviction, he gets convicted again September 2022. R. Kelly gets convicted in Brooklyn, September 2021. Chicago, September 2022. In December of 2022, stay with me on this. December of 2022, the New York City Council decides to amend the Gender-Based Violence Protection Act. And they add this unprecedented clause, Art, that says any woman in New York City who has ever been the victim of violence or sexual violence at the hand of a man can bring a civil suit. They didn't say they could bring criminal suit, Art. Nobody's going to jail. But they said you could bring a civil suit. Money. You can go get money. And check this out, Art. There's no statute of limitations. It don't matter if you was assaulted in 2000. It don't matter if you was assaulted in 1980. It don't matter if you was assaulted in 1880. If you still alive and he's still alive, you can drag him into court for a civil suit right now. Art, it's unprecedented. You can hardly find a law like that anywhere in America that gives any woman who was assaulted at any time in her life without no evidence to go after the perpetrator and drag them into court. Now, here's what I want you to pay attention to, Art. My question is it a coincidence? Here's what I'm going at. Bill Cosby, September 18 conviction. R. Kelly, September 21 conviction. R. Kelly, September 22 conviction. Okay? Then you got Puffy, 2024. Jay-Z, 2024, being charged. Here's my question, Art. Who decided on city council? Why did the New York City Council, Art, decide to amend the gender-based violence protection law? It's been around 22 years. They decide to add this clause. It's only good for 2 years, Art. It's a 2-year window from March the 1st of 2023 to March the 1st of 2025. March the 1st of 2023 till March the 1st, 2025. If you got 2 years to bring a suit against any man who has ever assaulted you at any time in your life. My question, Art, why did they decide to do this? Bill Cosby is already convicted. R. Kelly is already convicted. Harvey Weinstein is already convicted, Art. Harvey Weinstein, New York conviction is 2020. Bill Cosby, 2018. R. Kelly, 2021 and 2022. City Council passed this new provision in December of 2022. If Harvey Weinstein is already locked up, if Bill Cosby is already locked up, if R. Kelly is already locked up, why did they need to add this 2-year window, Art, that allowed women to go all the way back in time? You know what my position is? My position, Art, they added that law because they knew they were going after Sean Combs and Sean Carter. I'm going to say it again. Art. I want somebody to prove me wrong on this. You don't create a law unless you plan on using it, correct? You don't just sit around thinking up laws. You don't sit at a dinner table unless you're about to eat. You don't put your shoes on unless you're about to go walk. You don't give your child no toys unless they're about to play. Why did New York City Council amend this law that's 22 years old to allow women to go as far back as they want to bring men into court so they can get paid off civil cases for the next 2 years? They knew they was going after Sean Combs and they knew they was going after Sean Carter, Art. Nobody can convince me otherwise. So let's stay with the timeline. New York City passes that provision in December of 2022. Puffy sues Diageo in the spring of 2023. Casey Ventura files her federal case against Puffy November 16, 2023. Puffy settles out of court in less than 24 hours. Big mistake, Puff. When Puffy settled out of court, Art, in less than 24 hours, it made it appear that he had something to hide, and it made it appear that everything she accused him of was true. Now, don't get me wrong. Kobe Bryant settled his sex assault case out of court. But guess what, Art? He didn't do it in 24 hours. Michael Jackson settled his sex assault case out of court. He didn't do it in 24 hours. And of course, we found out later Michael Jackson was never guilty of molesting those white boys because one of the white boys came out and said he never touched them, that his parents put him up to doing it. So just because you settle out of court don't mean you're guilty, because Michael Jackson clearly was not. But here's my point, Art. Puffy should have never settled in 24 hours. Because guess what happened after that? Once Puffy settled with Cassie out of court in less than 24 hours, November 17, he got accused by 2 more women in 5 days. He got accused by 3 more women by the end of the month. And by the time the new year rolled around, it was over. And so then in January of this year, 2024, he settles with Diageo. January 16th of 2024, and 2 months later in March, his house was raided. Art, I'm telling you, New York City was urged to create that law, that provision of the law, that 2-year provision, so they could take down Puff and Jay. Nobody can convince me otherwise. Nobody can convince me otherwise. And for people who say, if you do the crime, you should do the time, I agree, Art. But can I ask them a question? Harvey Weinstein's 2020 conviction got thrown out. Harvey Weinstein's still in jail, Art, because he's serving a 16-year term from a Los Angeles conviction. But guess what? They're going to cut that down to 12 years because they say he should get credit for the time he was already serving in jail, because sentences usually run concurrently. He's currently on appeal right now. He's still in jail, but he's on appeal, and his lawyers are trying to get the LA case thrown out altogether. And of course, he was recently diagnosed with cancer, just came out of surgery. I believe Harvey Weinstein going home. I believe Harvey Weinstein going home. Now, some people are asking a question, Art. They said, will the NFL cancel Jay-Z's concert? Excuse me, Jay-Z's business relationship. Jay-Z helps produce the halftime shows at the Super Bowl. Some people are saying, will Roger Goodell, commissioner of the NFL, cancel Jay-Z's contract? Will he end Jay-Z's relationship with the NFL? First of all, we already know he's not, because he came out the other day and said that the NFL will proceed with their relationship with Jay-Z. But I knew that anyway, Art, because number one, you would be a fool to cancel Jay-Z before the Super Bowl. You would be a fool, because all them black folks who was going to watch it, they not watching a halftime show. They not even going to watch it. And plus, if they cancel Jay-Z, Kendrick might pull out. And they can't afford to lose Kendrick, as hot as Kendrick is. So that would have been financial suicide to cancel Jay-Z ahead of the Super Bowl. Now, could they have canceled him after the Super Bowl? Possibly. But they're not going to do that either, Art. And I'm going to tell you why. Look at all the sex assault complaints that have come against NFL personnel, and the NFL did nothing about it. Let's go to the New England Patriots owner, Roger Kraft. Roger Kraft was charged with 2 counts of prostitution in Florida at an Asian day spa. Guess what? He beat the case because the court said that the video footage that the police had on New England Patriots owner Roger Goodell can't be used in court because it was obtained unconstitutionally. Roger Kraft got off on the technicality, Art. You know, the white power structure took care of that for him. They said, yes, you got footage. He was engaged in prostitution, but y'all didn't get the footage the right way, so we got to throw it out. Let's go to Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger, former Super Bowl champion, 2-time Super Bowl champion, future Hall of Famer, 18 years with the Steelers, 16 to 18 years with the Steelers. He got accused of sexually assaulting a woman in a hotel casino. Guess what? That got dropped. Then he got accused of raping a 20-year-old girl inside of a bathroom stall at a club or something like that. She pressed charges. Her medical examiner found evidence of blood, forcible entry into her vaginal cavity, and guess what? The case got dropped. They said they didn't have enough evidence. The NFL didn't punish Ben Roethlisberger for the first crime, and they only gave him a 4-year suspension. 4 games, Art. They gave him a 4-game suspension for the second crime. So they don't have a history. They don't have a history of punishing white males when it comes to sex assault in the NFL. And if I want to go over to the NBA one quick time, even though this is the NBA, let's go to Marv Albert, the longtime announcer for the NBA. Marv Albert got accused of raping a 42-year-old, sodomizing her forcibly against her will. And guess what? He pled guilty, Art. He pled guilty to raping that woman. And guess what? The NBA gave him his job back after 2 years. So how you going to punish Jay-Z for what you think he might have done when you got these white males in the professional sports industry who have done worse or accused of things just as bad, and you really didn't do much about it? But let us go to WWE. What's the guy, Vince McMahon? Have you seen the charges against Vince McMahon? Vince McMahon is accused of everything Puffy is accused of times 3. Vince McMahon is accused of everything Sean Combs has been accused of times 3, Art. He's accused of sexually trafficking children. He's not only accused of sexually assaulting women, he's accused of holding them against their will while other men sexually assaulted them. This is all alleged, by the way. Everything I'm saying is alleged. But if you look at Vince McMahon's charges, they're worse than Puffy's. He's never been arrested. He's never been charged. So this is not just about guilt and innocence, Art. There is a racial factor and a racial narrative at play in these black billionaire takedowns. And black people better stop jumping on the bandwagon of trying to desecrate our celebrities publicly until we see the evidence. I don't know if Puffy's guilty. I don't know if Puffy's innocent. I don't know if Sean Carter is guilty. I don't know if Sean Carter is innocent, but I'm here to defend justice. And I'm here to defend everybody's right to a fair and impartial trial before a jury of their peers. And I thought it was bad taste, Art. I thought it was very bad taste that the media decided to drop these Jay-Z allegations right after Billboard announces Beyonce, I believe, as being artist of the century or something like that. And right before his daughter, Blue Ivy, has her premiere of the Mufasa movie, the Lion King sequel, where she's going to be one of the voices of one of the characters. They dropped this right after the Beyonce announcement and right before his daughter's red carpet debut. I thought that was foul. If Jay-Z is guilty, let Jay-Z stand his trial. Don't bring Beyonce. I'm a Beyonce fan. I'm going to just be honest with that. I think she cares about her people, and I think she tries to help her people whenever she can. So I think it's bad character to try to bring Beyonce into this, and I think it's bad character to try to disparage the image of a 12-year-old girl. I believe Blue Ivy's 12. Leave the kids out of it. Leave the wife out of it. Leave the twins out of it. But I want to say this, Art, and I'll stop. I believe Jay is going to survive this because, number one, I don't see how Tony Busby is going to find material evidence to prove that Jay-Z and or Sean Combs was ever in a room alone with this 13-year-old. Think about it, Art. Imagine if they pass her picture around. She don't look the same way. She don't look how she looked when she was 13. So who can place her? Art, who could place her at the party? Who can place her? You you were 13. Nobody looks the same way at 37 that they looked at 13. So Art, who's going to place her at the party? That's number one. Now, maybe she got some 13-year-old pictures. Now, if she got some 13-year-old middle school pictures, they can pass that around. But if you was trying to dress like a grown woman so you can get into the VMAs, chances are you don't look anything like your 13-year-old picture when you was at that VMA award. In other words, Art, you can hold up her VMA picture to her 13-year-old class pictures in middle school. She might look like two totally different women. So how are y'all going to place her at the party? How are you going to place Sean Combs and Sean Carter beside her at the party? How are you going to prove there was sex? How are you going to prove that there was sexual assault? I can't see it. But I want to say this part. I want to say this. We need to understand that morally inappropriate behavior does not preclude the existence of a separate and distinct public agenda. In other words, Art, Puffy can be wrong, Jay-Z can be wrong, and it can still be an agenda to destroy young black billionaires. Black people have this idea, Art, that if they're guilty of the crime, there's no conspiracy at play. That's not true. Because you don't see white men being charged of the same thing being taken down. Yes, they can be guilty. Yes, they should be held accountable, but there's still an agenda to destroy black male billionaires that we cannot afford to ignore. Black power.
How you feel about the statement Jay came out with?
Jay-Z's statement. At first, I thought it was a little premature. I kind of felt that Mr. Carter should have allowed his lawyers to respond on his behalf. However, Art, when I step back and look at what he risks losing because of this, I think it was more than appropriate for Mr. Sean Carter to respond himself. Think about it, Art. A 13-year-old, and I'm not getting in their business, but your wife can leave you if you're guilty of that. You understand? A wife will leave a husband if she found out you sexually assaulted a child younger than our own daughter. You know what I'm saying? Those types of accusations destroy families. Those types of accusations destroy legacies. Those types of accusations will terminate billion-dollar deals and agreements that you have. He could lose everything on these allegations, Art. And because of that, I think he did the right thing. He basically responded the exact opposite way as Sean Combs did. Puffy retreated and he settled. Jay said, I'm not retreating. I'm not settling. You're going to have to prove in a court of law that I am guilty of the crimes that you accuse me of. And like I said earlier, Art, the first thing Sean Carter's attorney is going to do is hire a private investigator. They're going to hire a private investigator who's going to dig all into that girl's past, Art. God forbid if she was ever locked up. God forbid if she was ever a prostitute. God forbid if she was homeless or if she come from a family where the parents might have had some challenges with substance abuse. Anything that they can use to disparage her character, they're going to use it to exonerate their client because that's what lawyers do. I just hope, Art, for her sake, I hope she's telling the truth because I would hate to see a black woman be embarrassed and disrespected on the stand the way she's going to be embarrassed and disrespected on the stand. So for that side, I hope it's true. For Jay-Z and Sean Combs, I hope it's not true. Because first of all, black men shouldn't be engaging in that type of behavior. And we have a lot of young people who look up to them, especially Sean Carter. And so I hope it's not true because number one, we shouldn't be doing that to our women. And number two, that's not the kind of legacy we want. And that's not the type of hope we want our young people to lose in one of their favorite celebrities.
How you feel about Diddy bail being denied for a third time?
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Puffy, Sean Combs being denied bail 3 times is unacceptable. How can he be denied bail 3 times, Art, and Vince McMahon ain't never been arrested yet for the same and worse? And Vince McMahon case is only 1 state away in Connecticut. So it's not like he's on the other side of the country. They 1 state away. Puffy gets denied bail 3 times. Vince McMahon ain't even been arrested. You know why they doing this? This is all about intimidation. This is all about humiliation. Humiliation and intimidation. They are sending a loud message to black celebrities. You are not above the law. You have no more power than any other black person. You will do what we say, and if you don't, we will destroy you. They're showing us by destroying our black billionaires how much power the black celebrity does not have. Racism, complete racism that Puff has not been released on bail. Complete racism. He has children. Nobody's thinking about his children. Sean Carter has children. Nobody's thinking about his children. And when I look on the internet and I just see all these black folks trying to destroy them, like I see black people convicting them before they even been tried in court. I ain't talking about people who've been around them. I can't speak to those in the music industry. I'm talking about regular, everyday YouTube and struggle streamers saying, yeah, I know Jay-Z is guilty. How you know he guilty? How do you know the man guilty? Was you there? Was you around him? How do you know? I just hate the fact, Art, that we are so quick to cancel, dismiss, and humiliate our own, even without evidence, but we don't keep the same energy with white folks. Look at the cop. The cop who shot and killed Sonia Massey up in Illinois, he's about to get out on bail. He's about to get out on bail. We're not crashing out for that, though. We're not crashing out for that. Donald Trump didn't put a single black person on his presidential cabinet. We're not crashing out for that. The stuff that matter, black people are not crashing out for, but we will crash out in support of Jay-Z being found guilty before he ever had a day in court. And like I said, I'm not on nobody's side. I'm on the side of justice. I believe in due process of the law. I believe everybody is innocent until proven guilty. And both Sean Combs and Sean Carter have reasserted their innocence. And until they've been proven guilty in a court of law before a jury of their peers with a preponderance of the evidence, I have no right to question them.
Well said. How you feel about that Jordan Neely case? Seeing that video, man, that was heartbreaking, man.
That was tragic. The Jordan Neely New York City subway murder trial, it was tragic. It was unfair, gross negligence by the courts, gross negligence by the city of New York, gross negligence by everybody involved. It was an absolute miscarriage of justice. First of all, let's look at the facts of this case. Jordan Neely walks onto the subway train. He says, I'm hungry and I need some food. And I don't care if I die or go to jail or something to that effect. According to the witnesses, Art, who were examined in court, not a single witness corroborated the media's claim that he said he was going to kill anyone. Remember, when this first happened, Art, when he first died, the media put out that he said he was going to unalive people on that train. Remember that? He came on the train saying he was going to hurt people and unalive them. Well, guess what? Not a single person in court said that Jordan Neely claimed that he was going to unalive anybody. So that was nonsense. He said he was hungry. He said that he didn't care if he went to jail. He didn't care if he was unalive, but he never said he was going to hurt anybody. He never put his hands on anybody, Art. There was no physical altercation. There was no physical confrontation of any kind whatsoever. You have a mentally ill 30-year-old man diagnosed with schizophrenia who got pushed out of the foster care system onto the street, arrested more than 42 times in his history, saw his mother get beat to death as a child. He gets on the subway and he's hungry. And you know what's hurtful about this whole Jordan Neely travesty, Art, is the fact that nobody on the subway, nobody, including the black people, one of which helped hold him down while the Caucasian Daniel Penny suffocated him to death. Not a single person on the train, not even a black person, Art, would give him something to eat or some money to go buy something to eat. If anybody on that New York City subway train would have given Jordan Neely some food, he would still be alive. If they would have given him some money for some food, he would still be alive. Art, think about that. He died because he was hungry. So here comes G.I. Joe, 24-year-old ex-Marine Daniel Penny. 24-year-old. He decides to put him in a chokehold, tackle him to the ground. And he holds him on the ground, Art, for 6 minutes. 6. They tried to lie, his defense, and say that he only held him for 5. Well, guess what, Art? Even if it is the 5 claimed by his defense attorneys, even if it is the 6 that was found by prosecution, it don't make a difference. And why don't it make a difference, Art? Because after you lose oxygen for 3 minutes, brain cells start to die off. Brain cells start to die once you are deprived of oxygen for 3 minutes. You can die when you are deprived of oxygen for 4 minutes. So whether it was the 5 minutes of the defense attorneys or the 6 minutes of the prosecution, you choked this man long enough to kill him. And you knew it. How do we know he knew it, Art? How do we know 24-year-old ex-Marine Daniel Penny intended to kill Jordan Neely? I'll tell you how. Because he was an ex-Marine. In the Marine Corps, they train you on how to end life. You are taught what it takes to suffocate another individual. I went to boot camp for JROTC as a high school student, Art, in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, as a teenager when I was in high school. We had to go to boot camp. I was at a JROTC high school in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. We had to go to boot camp if we wanted to become an officer. If you wanted to become an officer at the school, you got to go to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, train with the adults, and you come back, you can move up in rank. They taught us about the basics of suffocation. They taught us how long you can hold your breath, and you can suffocate and die. Basic little things are. So if I learned that 2 weeks at a summer camp in Fort Bragg Army, imagine what Daniel Penny was taught at Paris Island, South Carolina, basic training for the Marine Corps. He knew what it took to kill that man, and he took his life. And when they interviewed Daniel Penny after he was exonerated and set free, you know what he told the media, Art? He told the media the reason he continued to suffocate, and I'm paraphrasing, he told the media the reason he continued to suffocate Jordan Neely is because he was extremely strong. He said he was so strong that if I was going to let him go, and because I was on the ground under him, if I would let him go, he would be able to get up and probably attack me or attack somebody else. But if that's the case, Art, you have a whole train full of adults. Why you didn't tell somebody to get one leg, somebody to get the other leg? You had a black man holding Jordan Neely's hands while Daniel Penny choked him to death. He should have been brought up on charges. That black man who held his hands long enough for him to be suffocated, he should have been brought up on charges. Why didn't he hold one hand and another brother hold hand? You had a bunch of Latinos who was there, some Caucasians. Why you didn't ask them, get one leg, you get the other leg, and we're going to hold them down? And here's the other thing, Art. When the train arrived at the next stop, the passengers held the door open so the train wouldn't move any further until the police arrived to intervene. Well, guess what, Art? You think he would let him go? He continued to suffocate him even after the train stopped, even after the passengers were holding the doors open. And check this out, Art. According to the video, Daniel Penny continued to choke Jordan Neely for a minute longer after his body had already stopped moving. Art, he wasn't even moving no more. He wasn't even moving no more, probably already dead, possibly already unalived. He wasn't even moving anymore, and he kept him in the chokehold. And you can hear at least one passenger, you can hear him telling Daniel Penny, you are going to kill him. So you even had passengers who saw this man was being choked out. This was George Floyd all over again. The only difference, George Floyd was choked out by a police officer, and our good brother was choked out by an ex-Marine. Jordan Neely was choked out by an ex-Marine. That's the only difference. Now, black people are saying, Art, do we have any rights? The only rights you have in this country or anywhere else in the world are the rights that you're willing to fight for and the rights you are willing to die for. I want to go to the Dred Scott case, Art, because I think it will be good to explain Dred Scott to our people again. Dred Scott was a black man born into slavery in the same county as the prophet Nat Turner. Nat Turner and Dred Scott were both born in Southampton County, Virginia. Nat Turner was born in 1800. Dred Scott was born in 1799. Dred Scott's owner, slave master, took him, his wife Harriet, and their two daughters into the free territory of Wisconsin and maybe Illinois, Art. And Dred Scott, who was aware of the laws in the free territory, which said, if you keep your slaves in Wisconsin too long, they automatically become free because we are not a slave state, we are a free state. So Dred Scott said, even though I'm enslaved with my wife and daughters, we've been here too long. We have a right to be free. So he sued in court. The mistake the ancestor made, Art, he sued in Missouri. He did not sue in Wisconsin. So he was taken from Southampton County, Virginia, sold to slave owners in Missouri. He was then taken from the slave owners in Missouri to the free territory of Wisconsin. But when he sued, Art, he didn't sue in the free territory. He sued back home in Missouri, which was a slave state. But guess what, Art? He won the case. Dred Scott won the first case in Missouri. He won his freedom, but his slave master appealed the case to the Missouri State Supreme Court. And the Missouri State Supreme Court overturned the decision of the lower court. So Dred Scott and his wife decided to do what? Appeal the Missouri State Supreme Court to the U.S. Supreme Court. And on March the 6th of 1857, my first book, Psychoacademic Holocaust, was actually released on the anniversary of the Dred Scott case. So on March the 6th of 1857, Supreme Court Chief Justice, a notorious racist by the name of Roger B. Taney, read and wrote the majority decision for the Supreme Court. And I believe this case was decided on a 7-2 margin. 7 Supreme Court justices said, no, he don't get his freedom. 2 said he should get his freedom. And this is what they said, Art. They said, at the time the United States Constitution was being drafted right here in Philadelphia. In fact, about 5 minutes from where we talking, Art, in Independence Hall. He said that when the United States Constitution was being drafted, the framers of the Constitution, the founding fathers of the United States, did not consider Black people to be citizens of the United States, did not consider Black people to be their equal. And as a result of that, Black people were not considered citizens of the United States and never could be considered citizens of the United States. He said that the framers of the Constitution and the Constitution itself considered Black people to be an inferior race who were subjugated and brought to America as slaves and as property, and have always been considered to be inferior to Caucasians. And as a result of that, the Black man has no rights at all that the white man is bound to respect. That's why Daniel Penny was not convicted. And what's crazy about his sentence, Art, or should I say the verdict, they threw out the second-degree manslaughter, which would have gave him 15 years in jail. But they also found him not guilty of the, criminally negligent homicide. That was the charge in question. That's when you unalive somebody, not really intentionally, it's kind of unintentional, but you're so negligent about the person's care that it leads to their unaliving, for which you can be held responsible. How did he beat that charge? How can suffocating somebody for 6 minutes, which you know is going to result in death, how does that not reach the standard of criminally negligent homicide? My verdict, Art, on this situation: Jordan Neely was murdered because he was homeless, Black, and mentally ill. And Daniel Penny, his executioner, was vindicated of all charges because he was a privileged white male and a former Marine Corps veteran. This is another unfortunate case that shows you this country does not respect Black life. And if we want this country to respect Black life, we have to make them respect life. And that can only come through strong organization and a strong political and economic challenge to the power structure of America and the white status quo. In other words, Art, until Black people start sticking together, standing up, sacrificing time, life, and money, we will never be free. I think we just had about 5 Black people get killed unalived in the past 2 weeks by police and others, and nothing's being done about it. This doesn't change unless we fight. My ancestor Frederick Douglass said, what? If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who are whipped the easiest are those who will be whipped the most.
Yeah, I still can't get over that video, man. I can't believe the guy got away with that, man.
Absolutely, man. And he knew he would beat the case. He knew he would beat the case. That's why he did it. Just like the cop who shot Sonia Massey. He's probably going to beat the case. Of course, we're going to do all we can to show that to hope that he doesn't beat the case. But police have been rewarded with freedom and lack of jail time for killing Black people. So why would they stop? And we just crashed out over Kamala Harris. Black people crashed out over Kamala Harris. She ain't said a word about this. She ain't said a word about Sonia Massey. She ain't said a word about that brother who was executed in Missouri, I think it was, Dred Scott State. All these killings of innocent black people, and the vice president, who everybody thought we should vote for, ain't said a word. The president in office hasn't said a word. And the president-elect, Donald Trump, hasn't said a word and isn't going to say a word. We are on our own. We are on our own. And that's okay if we admit it, accept it, and begin to organize about it.
And speaking of Kamala, right? How you feel about her losing to Trump?
Kamala Harris's loss to Donald Trump was not a surprise for me. I think I even said somewhere that if she wins, America will descend into civil war. I believe that. Because even though the media was trying to give the false narrative that she was America's choice, it was clear to everyone that Donald Trump was America's choice. Not my choice, but America's choice. And I think the power structure had to sit down and really think this over, Art. I think this is one of the few elections in American history where the shadow government, and when I say shadow government, I'm talking about the Federal Reserve, the CIA, the FBI, the National Security Agency, the Bilderbergs, the Rothschilds, all of the secret society, Skull and Bones. I think this is one of the few elections where they might have had to change their decision in the 11th hour, because I am very confident that they wanted a second Joe Biden term. But because he was intellectually unable to proceed, they were forced to go with Kamala, and they thought she could win it because you had 10 million more women registered in the last election than men. So if Kamala could just carry the female vote, we would win. And what did we see? We saw the same thing we saw when Donald Trump ran against Hillary Clinton. America's white women sided with Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, and they sided with Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. And I'm not surprised she lost. I expected her to lose, but I'm still disappointed in our Black Greek society, because that $30 million that they gave her the first night she announced her candidacy to be president of the United States, we don't get that money back, Art. We don't get that money back. And that kind of money could have been used to build a mental health hospital for Black people, the kind of hospital that would have gave Jordan Neely the treatment he needed so he would have never end up on the subway getting choked out by a Caucasian. So some people say, is it good she lost? Because if she had won, Black people would have saw in her another savior, as we saw in Barack Obama. I understand the notion, but I don't agree, Art, because Donald Trump isn't going to wake up Black people any more than Kamala Harris is. Because you need love to organize. You need love to build. You need love for solidarity, Art. We don't have it. So whether it's Donald Trump mistreating you, whether it's Kamala Harris selling you false promises, at the end of the day, you're going to end in the same place because you don't have enough commitment to one another to overcome what you're going through. But let me say this, having said that. Donald Trump is making a lot of promises, Art, a lot of promises. And I want to remind people that Donald Trump is not the CEO of the United States. Donald Trump is the president of the United States, or will be again next month. The president does not run the country. The shadow government runs the country. Donald Trump is making a lot of promises about deporting illegal immigrants. Do I believe he's going to be able to deport all of these illegal immigrants, Art? No, I do not. Is he going to be able to deport the African immigrants? Yes, he will. Because white people don't want African immigrants in America. And unfortunately, brainwashed American Africans, many of us don't want African immigrants in America either. So he will be successful deporting the Haitian brothers and sisters. He will be successful deporting our Congolese brothers and sisters, both of whom he accused of eating animals and things like that. But notice, Art, he didn't make those jokes about the Latino immigrants. He didn't make those jokes about the migrants. You know why? Because Donald Trump knows the migrants are here to stay, Art. And how does Donald Trump know the migrants are here to stay? I'll tell you how. Number one, Donald Trump knows that if he sends all those migrants back to South and Central America, a lot of American corporations will pack up and they will move to second and third world countries where they can pay the children less than $1 a day, Art, to make their expensive merchandise. The migrants are here for two big reasons. Number one, to guarantee that America big businesses and corporations don't float their factories to another country. That's the main reason the migrants are here. Donald Trump is a businessman. He understands economics and capitalism as well as anybody. He knows damn well that if he kick out all those migrants, he will lose a lot of businesses. He can't afford that. And number two, as we all know, the migrants are here to replace black people. They're here to replace us in our communities. They're here to replace us in the social service support programs. They're here to replace us in colleges and universities. That's one of the reasons President Joe Biden renamed the White House HBCU initiative to the White House Minority Serving Institutions Initiative, Art. It's no longer HBCU. It's Minority Serving Institutions. So they are creating the type of environment that they need to replace black with brown. And we are partly responsible for this because every time we open up our silly, politically uneducated mouths, all you hear from American Africans is black and brown, black and brown. You never hear brown people talk about black people. You never hear brown people talk about black people. You never hear brown people talk about black people, but whenever we get a microphone in front of our mouths, we start taking up for brown people before we even take up for black people. So we deserve a lot of this. And as far as President Obama trying to disrespect black men into voting for Kamala Harris, Obama, please, what did you do for black people? You oppose reparations. You raised the bounty on Ashada Shakur's head, a black woman, former Black Liberation Army goddess, former Black Panther goddess. Yes, President Barack Obama raised Ashada Shakur's bounty. Remember, the State Department had $1 million bounty on Ashada Shakur's head if somebody could bring her back to America to stand trial. $1 million. Barack Obama gets in there. And the FBI under Barack Obama, he's the president, they serve him. Under Barack Obama, the FBI raised the bounty on Assata Shakur's head, Art, from $1 million to $2 million. That's what Barack Obama did for black America. He refused to exonerate the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, did nothing about police genocide, but made it more difficult for you to sue police for brutalizing you unjustifiably when he signed that blue alert law. Remember, he signed that law that made it almost impossible for you to defend yourself against police assault. President Barack Obama did that. So he was the last person to push Kamala Harris. Here's the problem, Art. The black bourgeoisie failed to recognize that the people, the black people who voted for Barack Obama, were not the young people who will be voting now. The young people who voted for Obama are the parents. It is their children who are the young people now. And they have already seen how Obama did not serve black people and they were not going to fall for the same scam again. You could probably make the case, Art, that Barack Obama campaigning for Kamala Harris may have hurt her vote in black America. I definitely think Barack Obama campaigning for Kamala Harris hurt her vote amongst black men. But I don't know what these Republican Party plantation slaves are celebrating, Art. I don't know what these Republican Party plantation slaves are celebrating, Art, because Donald Trump didn't appoint a single black person to his cabinet. He might appoint a judge. He got several federal judgeships. Maybe a black person will get a federal judgeship. But so far, I ain't seen no Africans named for Donald Trump's cabinet. And that's exactly what we get. That's exactly what we get running around here acting like Donald Trump is some kind of a friend of black people. Ain't this the same man who took out a full page ad against those brothers who were unfairly arrested and accused of being part of that Central Park murder case? Donald Trump said he wanted them to get the death penalty. I don't even think he ever apologized for that. Donald Trump, who signed a death warrant for innocent black men right before he left office the last time he was president. Donald Trump don't care about no black folks. Neither does Kamala Harris. We better get organized, because if black America doesn't get organized, Art, I'm afraid we might not survive the 21st century in this country.
Gotta get organized. And I had no idea that Obama, he did that to Asada. I didn't know about that, man.
Yes. Oh, yes. $2 million under a black president.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I had no idea he did that, man. But you heard about Travis Hunter and his fiance?
Yes, I have. And I saw that comedian Godfrey had responded to the news that Travis Hunter was engaged and that it had been purported that his fiance had stated that he originally was not her type, but that he had, and I'm paraphrasing here, he had since that time won her over. And with them being engaged, it appears that marriage will be coming at some point in the future, and there didn't seem to be any conversation surrounding a prenuptial agreement. There had been rumors that Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, had tried to communicate with Travis Hunter that you might just want to slow down a little bit. Not to say that she's not a nice lady, not to say she's not the one, but you're moving kind of fast. I mean, I'm saying now, to be the number one football player in the country, or number two, depending on how you rank him and Shedeur Sanders. And by the way, both of them are my two favorite college football players, and will probably be my two favorite NFL players if they don't start bunny hopping. But anyhow, you have not played an NFL game. You have not even been through the NFL draft. You have no idea of the type of women you're going to meet whenever you get to whatever team that you're going to play for. He's still a child. You've only been in Boulder, Colorado, and you've been in Jackson, Mississippi. Why not give yourself some time to explore life before you just jump the hoop with this woman? And I'm not going to say nothing against the young lady. She might be a nice young lady. Obviously, I have issues with it because I believe black men should be married to black women. And this looks like it's going to be another tragic tale of another multi-million-dollar black athlete who sooner or later is going to get divorced, and his non-black wife is going to run off with all of his career earnings, as we've seen with so many other athletes and continue to see on a regular basis. So I'm not for it at all. But again, I'm not besmirching her character. I'm sure she's a fine young lady. But for him to be engaged already, and for him to be about to get married, and he doesn't even have a prenuptial agreement, are you out of your mind, Travis Hunter? No disrespect to the young brother. I'm a fan. But bruh, slow this down. Put the marriage on ice. I need him to put that marriage on ice for about 2 or 3 years, and don't have any children out of wedlock while that marriage is on ice. My fear, Art, is he's going to run into the queen of his dreams, and it's going to be too late. It's going to be too late. So I just think the brother moving too fast. So many of our black athletes, they run into these non-black women in college, and they just think that that's what their life is all about. She's the best thing since life bred, not to demean any woman of any culture, but we should be with our own women. And one thing I appreciate about Deion Sanders, although I'm still not happy with the move he made to Colorado, making all that money for a predominantly white college that does nothing for black people. But nonetheless, one thing I do respect about Coach Prime, you don't see his sons doing that. You don't see Shedeur and the other brother, the cornerback or the safety, the other Sanders. What's his name?
Shallow.
Shiloh Sanders. Shout out to Shiloh. Forgive me for forgetting your name there, young Prince. But you don't see Shador and Shiloh being all booed up with no girl in college. You notice that? You always see them by themselves. You don't see them. I've never seen any photo of either one of them, Shador or Shiloh, booed up with any girl, black or white, in college because they father not having that. Deion Sanders knows how this goes. He knows how women will try to hitch their cart to your wagon. You know, he knows how this goes. And I think he had to sit down with Shiloh and Shador and said, listen, y'all can have all the fun y'all want. You better be protecting yourself and you better not be getting booed up with no woman. You built this. We built this. If you're going to choose a woman, you're going to choose her with this head, not the other one. And so I appreciate Deion Sanders for not allowing his sons to fall into the same trap that it appears Travis Hunter has fallen into. You know, it's such a shame, so unfortunate to be that great and to still be a victim of the snow bunny crisis. It's just ridiculous. Now, some people are saying she's mixed race. Some people are saying she got a black mom, black dad, but that doesn't mean anything to me because, as you know, although I consider mixed race Africans to be black, as long as they identify full time, I have seen no evidence that Travis Hunter's girlfriend has ever identified as a black woman, ever. So even if she's biologically African and has a black parent, for me and most Pan-Africanists, you have to not only be biologically black, you have to be psychologically black. And I haven't seen any proof at all that Travis Hunter's girlfriend identifies as a black woman. But again, no disrespect to her. This is no hate to her. All we saying is we want to keep black money in the black community and we want to keep black celebrities with our own black women. It's just a self-love thing. It has nothing to do with hate. And I just hope the brother wakes up and realizes what's going on before she takes half of what he's about to earn.
Yeah, I mean the fact that she came out and said that she didn't find him attractive. I mean that's very telling, man.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier when she said that when she said that Travis Hunter wasn't really her type. So to your point, Art, what you just said, you know, she said she wasn't really attracted to him at first. What is that telling you? Is that not the writing on the wall? The woman went so far as to tell people she was not attracted to you. So why is she with you? The same reason everybody else's white wife is with them, for money and status. For money and status. And for him to hear her say that and stay with her, I'm very disappointed. But again, I got faith in a young brother. I like him. He's good spirited, good energy. Doesn't seem like he got a whole lot of political education, but a lot of our black athletes don't, right? They've been surrounded by white folks their whole life and black people who ain't thinking about teaching them about who they are, only trying to maximize their profit for the power structure in the sports entertainment industry. I just hope somebody wakes Travis Hunter up. I'm tired of seeing this play out over and over again. He is too young to be settling down with a girl he just dated in college, who, as you said, claimed that she was never her type in the first place. You know, maybe he need to talk to Jamie Foxx, because when I looked at Jamie Foxx's special that he just had on Netflix, you know, he kind of alluded to the fact that he was kind of done with the snow bunny crisis. Now, of course, Jamie Foxx was joking because somebody sent me a replay of the clip on Netflix where Jamie Foxx said, you know, no white girls in public or no snow bunnies in public or whatever the case. So he ain't done dating outside the race. But it does sound like he's thinking about it. And it does, for Jamie Foxx to say that, Art, I think it does kind of signify that he's starting to realize he's going to need a black woman beside him for the second half of his life. And even though he was joking, there's always a little bit of truth in the joke. And I think what everything Jamie Foxx went through with this stroke that he had and how he could have lost his life, and his daughter, you know, really helped save him with the blessing of the Most High. I think Jamie Foxx is thinking a little differently now, Art. And I think Jamie Foxx is beginning to appreciate the value and the importance of having a black woman in his life. I would be surprised if Jamie Foxx retires without having a black woman next to him. Maybe Travis Hunter needs to go have a sit down with Jamie Foxx, and maybe Jamie Foxx can go a little bit more in depth with Travis Hunter about why he made the comment he made that he's done with the white girls in public.
How you feel about Drake suing his own label over Not Like Us? You heard about that?
As far as Drake's lawsuit against Universal Music Group, which is one of the six largest entertainment companies in the world, and I think Universal is the single largest music company in the world. But first of all, I have to say this to put it in context. I don't listen to Kendrick's music. I don't listen to Drake's music. And it's not because of anything against Kendrick or Drake. I don't listen really to nobody from this generation. Like I'm still listening to my Tupac. I'm still listening to my Naughty by Nature, my Big Daddy Kane, my Public Enemy, my KRS-One. Even R&B. I'm still listening to 90s and 2000s R&B. I'm not a fan of this generation's music. So I can only go off their personality. I think Kendrick has a wonderful personality. He seems like a wonderful dude, a great guy. So if it is in fact true that Kendrick is a snow bunny hopper, if Kendrick Lamar is a snow bunny hopper, and given the fact that Drake has not yet clarified for me as to whether or not he identifies as a full-time African, I'm looking at both of them with a side eye, Art. I'm looking at Kendrick Lamar with a side eye because you have no business being who you are, dating outside your race. And I'm looking at Drake with a side eye because you have no business being as famous as you are, not being crystal clear with the global African public as to whether or not you identify as a full-time African. So if if Kendrick is a bunny hopper and Drake wants to identify as mixed race instead of black, I'm looking at both of them with the side eye. Now, to your question. So here's my question. I would have the same question for Kendrick Lamar's fiance as I would have for Travis Hunter's girlfriend. Because as you know, Art, I'm fair across the board. I don't cut nobody no slack. The rules are the rules. The principles are the principles. So the question I would ask Travis Hunter's girlfriend, or Travis Hunter for that matter, is the same question I would ask Drake's fiance, or Drake for that matter. Does your fiance, Kendrick's fiance for that matter, I would ask Kendrick, does your mixed race fiance identify as a black woman on a full-time basis? And if brother Kendrick, who I love and respect, Drake, I love and respect y'all, this ain't no personal issue. But if Kendrick tells me that his fiance does not identify as a black woman on a full-time basis, then he is a bunny hopper and I cannot listen to his music. I can't. I didn't know. I thought she was black because somebody told me she was black. I thought I heard that before. But if it's crystal clear that she's biologically black is probably what they meant, Art. So Kendrick Lamar's fiance is biologically black, but she doesn't identify full-time as a black woman, allegedly, then I can't listen to his music. I can't. We got to stop all this bunny hopping. Black people are at war. You saw what happened to Jordan Neely. You saw what happened to Sonia Massey. You see what's happening to black people all day. We can't afford this. We need our soldiers to be soldiers for the community. And no black man can be a soldier for the African race if he bunny hopping with a non-black woman. So even if she has African ancestry, if one of those parents are black, if she don't identify full time, she's a snow bunny. You know my rules. No rice, no ice, no spice, no sand, and no salsa. Black queens forever, snow bunnies never. But to your question. So again, Kendrick, Travis, I need clarity on the political identity of your women. Drake, I need clarity on your political identity. Now, to your question, Art, I believe Drake has a case. And I'm going to tell you why I believe Drake has a case against the Universal Music Group. I believe Drake has a case. And I'm being fair because, like I said, I like Kendrick's personality. Disappointed he's a bunny hopper, but I like Kendrick as a person. I like Shannon Sharp's personality, but he's a bunny hopper. Okay, so with that being said, I think Drake has a case. There's nothing personal against Kendrick. I like him as a person. The reason I say Drake has a case, Drake is alleging that Universal Music Group is suppressing his music, suppressing his streams, they haven't been marketing him as strongly as they have been marketing Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick and Drake are both signed to labels that are subsidiaries of Universal Music Group. So that is a conflict of interest. That is a conflict of interest. You represent me and you represent my arch nemesis. That's a conflict of interest. And if we are going to be honest, Art, and again, I don't listen to their music. So I can't say if Kendrick's music is better than Drake's. I can't say Drake's music is better than Kendrick. They're both bunny hoppers, so I don't listen to them. But categorically and qualitatively speaking, I have heard Kendrick's Not Like Us a whole lot more since it dropped than I've heard Drake. And mind you, even though I don't listen to them personally, I'm in the airports all the time. I'm in hotels all the time. I'm on interviews all the time. I'm in radio stations all the time. I'm in, black cars all the time. I'm around enough other people, Art, that I know what people are listening to. And what's on the radio is Kendrick and not Drake as much. And so to the point, does Drake have a case that Universal Music Group is suppressing his music, suppressing his marketing, and promoting Kendrick? Absolutely. He has a case. He definitely has a case. No, anybody who's looking at this objectively has to admit Drake has a case. Even if Drake's music is, I keep mixing them up. Even if Kendrick's music is better, even if Kendrick's music is better than Drake, they're still not promoting Drake enough. And Drake is as accomplished as Kendrick. I even read something that he kind of is outdistancing Kendrick on a couple of different musical parameters, right? But Kendrick is outdistancing him on a couple of different music parameters as well. But at the end of the day, all things considered equal, I think they should probably get the same amount of radio play, Art. And the fact that they're not clearly says Universal is pumping Kendrick and suppressing Drake. And Drake is also alleging that Universal Music knew that Kendrick was going to subliminally accuse Drake of inappropriate relations with children in that song. And Drake feels like they should have made him delete that line, or they should at least have made him aware that Kendrick was about to publish a diss track that accuses you of sexually inappropriate behavior with children. He did have a right to know that. If you are my music company, you should let me know what's about to be said about me so I can prepare myself, and you didn't. But more than that, you should have stopped him from releasing that line, because people are going to believe it even if it's not true, and that could hurt my sales. So I do believe Drake has a case, and I think the best way to handle this, honestly, maybe let Drake go. Maybe Drake is ready to go independent. Maybe Drake wants to go over to Sony. I don't know, Art. You know what I mean? I think Drake can handle his own independently. I mean, he is one of the most successful black musicians ever. He's broken records from, R&B and pop artists, so I think they probably need to let him go. They're definitely going to have to prove that they did not side with Kendrick in this beef. And I think they did, but I'm not saying, nothing, I'm not shooting Kendrick down, and I'm not lifting Drake up. As I said, they're both bunny hoppers, so I'm not going to listen to either one of them until they stop bunny hopping, or until Kendrick's wife decides to be full-time African. Then that's another, fiance decides to be full-time African. That's another conversation. But I like the guys. I like them both. Can't listen to them for obvious political reasons. But I do think Universal sided with Kendrick, and I think that Drake has a right to push forth his lawsuit. Is he a little bitter that he lost the beef? Sure, he's a little bitter that he lost the beef, but losing the beef ain't got nothing to do with my music label overly promoting my adversary and not sufficiently promoting me. It's not acceptable. I think he has a case.
Yeah, I think he does too. I mean, he definitely got a case. So, I mean, we gonna see, man. How you feel about the actor Jaleel White coming out saying that black people don't support Family Matters because it's not a hood story?
Well, first of all, on the Jaleel White comments from Family Matters, I'm a little disappointed that nobody told me he was going to be at the Wilmington Library, Art, because as you know, the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy is a few blocks away from the Wilmington Public Library. Wilmington is not a big city, and with us having a property there, a school that will be opening soon, I wish someone would have sent me the notice that Jaleel White would have been there. I would have went to hear him. Now, don't get me wrong. He's a snow bunny hopper too. So I'm disappointed in Jaleel, like I'm disappointed in Travis Hunter, like I'm disappointed in Drake, like I'm disappointed in Kendrick. They should all be with black women. Nothing against non-black women. I respect all females, but we need to keep the money and we need to keep the love inside the community. So Jaleel White just, jumped the broom. He snow bunnied, and that's what it is. But I did like Family Matters. I was a fan of the show. And unlike other people, I do believe Family Matters was a good black show. I think it was more geared towards children than adults. See, Martin, although children watched Martin, it was more for adults. Although children watched Fresh Prince, well, Fresh Prince could still be geared towards children, but Martin and a lot of them shows, a lot of them was more young adult shows. Family Matters, because of Urkel, was a decidedly obvious childhood show. And I thought it was one of the great childhood shows. It might have not done the numbers of Fresh Prince. It might have not done the numbers of the Cosby Show. It might have not done the numbers, of Martin and these others, the Jamie Foxx Show and the Bernie Mac Show. It may have not done them numbers, but I think it was targeted to a younger audience. And I appreciated it. It was not stereotypical, as was the other shows. Most of them other shows had a lot of black stereotypes in it. Family Matters did not. And I really like Family Matters. I thought the young sister in there, she was absolutely gorgeous. I had a little crush on her. You know what I mean? But I thought it was a really good show until when I hear him talk about how Family Matters has been excluded from the dialogue and from the conversation of great black shows, I think it's unfortunate because I do think Family Matters was a great black show. I enjoyed the Urkel character. I do believe he was punished because he played Urkel. And what I mean by that, Art, Jaleel White, he was typecast. He played Urkel so well that he could never play a serious character. And I believe that limited a lot of the opportunities he got in life. I'll give you another good black artist who I thought was typecast out of better opportunities, Bokeem Woodbine, who played in Jason's Lyric. Bokeem Woodbine played in the Panther movie about the Black Panthers. He's a great actor, but I believe he played the criminal or the gangster so well that it was hard to see him as any other character. And I think that's what happened with Jaleel White. I think Jaleel White played Urkel so well that he was denied a lot of other opportunities when he became an adult because of how closely he was associated with that character. So, but for me though, Family Matters goes in my top 5. Family Matters goes in my top 5. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I grew up on it. I appreciated it. And shout out to Jaleel. I'm disappointed that he's a bunny hopper, but I am very, I'm dismayed to know that he don't feel Family Matters is getting the credit that it deserves. I think when you talk about children's shows though, Art, it got to be top 5 in the children's shows. Overall black sitcoms, it should still make the top 10 in overall black sitcoms. But even if it doesn't make the top 10 in overall black sitcoms, it got to be top 5. And for me, number 1 for black childhood sitcoms. So I'm sorry he feels the way he feels. Hopefully in time, Family Matters will get its just due. But my brother Jaleel White, we got a bigger issue to deal with, and that is your snow bunny crisis.
I had no idea, man. I didn't know he was with a non-black woman.
Now, he just got married to a Caucasian not too long ago. Yep. And so my thing is, Art, when you talk about these black celebrities, and this is not to, cast doubt on what he had to say at the Wilmington Public Library, but it bothers me when I see black men married to non-black women who then want to say that they were punished in a certain way because they're black. Or, as he said, Family Matters really didn't fulfill a lot of the stereotypes. It didn't have a lot of quote unquote stereotypical black content. And so it's not entered into the discussion on black sitcoms. I think he's true when he said that. I think he's telling the truth and it's not fair. But how are you going to advocate that you were the most popular artist on a very popular child-centered sitcom when you're not even married to a black woman? So you can't really argue for blackness because you're not committed to blackness. So how can that be your? Now, if he want to say he was underpaid or something other than ethnicity and culture, I could hear that argument, but he can't use that we're discriminated against our own people because our show wasn't a stereotypically black show when you discriminated against black women yourself when you chose to marry a white female. So I think he has to look in the mirror and accept the fact that he's guilty of the very same thing he's accusing the black community of being guilty of, and that's discriminating against your own. He discriminated against his own when he married a non-black woman.
You feel like Al Sharpton and Roland Martin was paid to push Kamala, right?
When the story broke, Art, that Reverend Al Sharpton and Swollen Martin were paid by the Democratic National Party and or Kamala Harris's campaign and or the Democratic National Committee to sell Kamala Harris to black people, I was not surprised. I was not surprised because I had already had a back and forth with D.L. Hughley. I had already had a back and forth with Steve Harvey. I had already implicated black celebrities in being bought and sold by the Democratic Party to sell Kamala Harris to black people. Of course, Steve Harvey claimed innocence. DL never spoke to it directly, I believe. But for Swollen Martin and Reverend Al to be paid, I believe they said Swollen received about $350,000 in campaign contributions, and Reverend Al Sharpton received $500,000 of Kamala Harris campaign contributions. I think it's sad, not because they took the money, Art. Business is business. It's sad because they were not transparent with the black community. If Roland Swollen Martin would have told black people that I'm getting $350,000 to sell Kamala Harris to you in exchange for your votes on election day, I can't hold him accountable because he was transparent. I still don't like it, but you came clean. You were honest up front and you told the black American public, the American African people, I'm being paid to make sure you vote for Kamala Harris. If you told them, nobody can hold you accountable because you was transparent. If Reverend Al Sharpton, if he would have told the American African people, I'm being paid to get the black vote out for Kamala Harris on election day, you can't blame them, Art, because y'all making it clear to us that this is a business arrangement. This is business. Swollen Martin getting black people to the campaign polls, to the election day polls, it's business. Reverend Al Sharpton getting black people out on election day for Kamala Harris, it's business. I can understand that, Art. It's business. Let us know you're being paid to get our votes out for the Democratic Party. It's business. The problem with Reverend Al and Swollen Martin, Art, is they were not honest. To my knowledge, and I will apologize if I'm wrong, to my knowledge, Swollen Martin did not disclose the extent of his financial arrangement with Kamala Harris's campaign team. To my knowledge, Reverend Al Sharpton did not disclose the extent of his relationship, his financial entanglement with Kamala Harris's campaign team. And if Swollen Martin and Reverend Al Sharpton did not tell Black America that we are being paid to sell the Democratic Party to you, they were wrong, Art, because that means they play on our people's hearts. They play on our people's hopes. They play on our people's dependency on those who are more politically well educated than them to help them make the accurate choice. Many people see Swollen Martin as a leader. I don't. Many people see Reverend Al Sharpton as a leader. I don't. But many people do. And because they saw them as leaders who were advocating the best interests of the Black community as they saw it, separate from any financial entanglement of the candidates, that was betrayal. that was conduct unbecoming a member of the African race. They were wrong. And I would dare say to Swollen Martin and Reverend Al Sharpton that some of that money that y'all were paid, some of the money that they were paid to endorse Kamala Harris needs to be invested back into the Black community as seed money for a relevant institution, Art, that we do not have. For example, Black America doesn't have one independent Black hospital that we own and control. Yes, Howard University has a hospital. Yes, we have another HBCU with a hospital, but those hospitals are not independently owned nor independently financed by Black people. We don't own and control a single hospital in the United States. Mr. Swollen Martin and Reverend Al Sharpton could donate to the establishment of a Black hospital. They could donate to the establishment of an independent Black school. They could donate to the establishment of a new Black bank, independent Black bank. They could donate to the establishment of a Black supermarket that's selling us organic food coming directly from the Black farmers. They could donate to the establishment of a Black manufacturing or distribution sector. I would love for Mr. Swollen Martin and Reverend Al Sharpton to donate money back to the Black community in the form of an independent institution. And if they did that, we could consider accepting their apology. But until they do that, I cannot forgive them for what they did. What they did was political treachery and racial betrayal. And it's a big reason why Black people don't trust people they consider to be Black leaders. And it's a big reason why, Art, I do not accept money from non-Black sources. This is exactly why the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy is 100% independently owned, operated, renovated by Black people, the African race. Because the hand that pays is the hand that rules, and you cannot take money from outside the Black community and not be compromised in some way, shape, form, or fashion.
And I know you got an issue with Harriet Tubman, right? Only being on coins and not a $20 bill.
Absolutely. January of this year, the U.S. Mint decided to produce some Harriet Tubman coins. You can get a Harriet Tubman $50, Harriet Tubman dollar, and they got some other coins for Harriet Tubman. January of 2024, and it ends, Art, this month. The last day of this month, the Harriet Tubman coins will be pulled from circulation. So I'm telling everybody, Art, every American African, continental African, European African, Central South American African, Canadian African, Australian African, Caribbean African, Africans of Asia, South Pacific Africans, please go to usmint.org. Please go to the usmint.org, I believe is the website, Art, and order you a Harriet Tubman coin. I'm going to order me some before the year is out, Art, because they only doing it for 1 year. And I just want to have a piece of her because she's one of my favorite ancestors. Second to Nat Turner, favorite female ancestor. But here's the thing, Art. The reason I'm disappointed over this, though. The reason I'm disappointed over this. Harriet Tubman was supposed to grace the front of the $20 bill, as you know. Harriet Tubman was supposed to become the permanent face of the $20 bill in U.S. currency. Andrew Jackson, with his racist behind, was going to remain on the back, but she was going to be on the front. And guess what? It ain't happened yet. And so now to try to placate Black America, they're going to give us a coin. I'm still going to get the coins because I want anything with Harriet Tubman on it. I'm not supporting the government. I'm supporting the memory of my ancestor. But I don't take issue with anybody who says I'm not going to buy the coin. I don't want nothing to do with them. I can respect that too. But I want a piece of this history because it's only for this year and then they're going to pull it. But Art, how do you compare 1 year of coins, 1 year of coins that was poorly promoted and advertised, with the fact that our Queen Mother ancestor, the greatest woman of any race to walk on American soil, was supposed to be the permanent face of the American $20 bill? That is a disgraceful, is disrespectful. It is an insult to Black people to only give us our ancestor on a coin for a year instead of the front of a $20 bill forever. This shows you how racist this country is when they won't even celebrate the life and memory and legacy of a Black woman who helped them defend this country as the only woman in American history to actually serve as a general in combat when Queen Mother Harriet Tubman commandeered the U.S. colored troops in 1863 during the Combahee River Raid. And in one day, Harriet Tubman, along with the U.S. colored troops of the Civil War, liberated over 750 enslaved Africans in one day, Art. She was a nurse for this country, a spy, a scout in the Civil War. If it wasn't for Harriet Tubman, they might have not even won the Civil War. They refused to give her a military pension during her life. You said you would put her on a $20 bill. You didn't do that. And instead, you reduced her to a coin for 1 year of circulation. Absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, that ain't cool, man. Not cool at all. How you feel about Biden giving his son a pardon?
Joe Biden's pardon of his son. Was it political patronage? Of course it was. Was it morally ethical? Of course it was not. But here's the question, Art. I'm not going to fault him. And I'm not going to fault him for one reason and one reason alone. If my son or daughter had to do Fed time or was at risk of doing Fed time or having their criminal record permanently besmirched, I would pardon them too. I cannot fault a parent, black, white, red, brown, or yellow. I cannot fault a parent for looking out for their child. So as far as Joe Biden pardoning his son, I can't speak against that, because if I was president of the United States and I had the opportunity to pardon one of my two daughters, I'm pardoning them too. Now, Joe Biden also commuted the sentence of 1,500 American citizens. It's one of the largest commutations in American history. Barack Obama commuted the sentence, I think, of about 350. He might have done a little more than that. But Joe Biden's commutation of 1,500 people is the second largest commutation, I believe, in American history by a president ever. But that don't do nothing for me, Art. And some people are going to say, why not? Because I remember when President Donald Trump commuted Lil Wayne, commuted Kodak Black, commuted the former mayor of Detroit, Kwame Kilpatrick. I'm glad my brothers got out of jail. Don't get me wrong. But you're taking care of individuals. We need systemic solutions in Black America. We need systemic criminal justice reform in Black America. So when I see President Joe Biden letting 1,500 people out of prison, and they're not all Black, by the way, let's just be clear about that. They're not all Black, but however so many of them are Black, it's not enough for me, Art. That's not enough. That's like you got 1,000 homeless people and you put 100 of them in a house for the wintertime. The other 900 could still die of the winter cold. You see what I'm saying? As an African, we are about the culture. We are about the community. We are about the best interest of the village. You can't take one Black person and help them and say you help Black people. You can't commute the sentence of one Black person and say you help Black people. It don't work like that. What are you doing, President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, President-elect and former President Donald Trump? What are you doing to transform criminal justice for the American African people? Commuting a sentence means nothing. And by the way, Art, commutations are not the same as pardons, okay? When you pardon somebody, you eliminate the conviction when you pardon. When you commute, you don't eliminate the conviction. That felony is still on your record. You just reduce prison time. So at the end of the day, how much help did you really give them? I want systematic change. I don't want criminal justice tokenism.
Speaking of Al Sharpton, right? When you were speaking about him, it had me thinking about Jesse Jackson. How you feel about the people that feel like he had something to do with Martin Luther King death?
Regarding the Dr. King assassination, there's a book called The Assassination of Dr. King, written by attorney William Pepper. I strongly recommend you read it. I strongly recommend all your viewers read it or get the audio book. I have the audio book. The Dr. King assassination was the most thoroughly planned assassination in American history, hands down. It was more thoroughly planned and more technically arranged than the JFK assassination. According to Dr. King's attorney, William Pepper, who sued on behalf of the King family and won, proving in court that James Earl Ray did not kill Dr. King, but it was a sharpshooter for the Memphis Police Department on the explicit orders of J. Edgar Hoover. Now, in that book, Art, William Pepper, and you can read this for yourself, He interviews one of the Green Berets who were the backup shooters. In case the Memphis sharpshooter would have missed Dr. King as the target, the Green Berets of the U.S. Army were supposed to execute Dr. King. If memory serves me correctly, one of the Green Berets is interviewed, and he says that they were told, his whole squad on the roof across from King's hotel, ready to offer the kill shot, they were told that friendlies would not be wearing ties. You are not to shoot anyone who is not wearing a tie, who has a plain, flat collar. Jesse Jackson had a plain, flat collar. How under heaven does the Green Beret, acting on the orders of the U.S. military and the FBI, how in the world did Jesse Jackson get word, Art, that he was not supposed to wear a shirt and tie on the day Dr. King was murdered? According to William Pepper, allegedly, everything is alleged. According to William Pepper, and I don't want to besmirch Reverend Jackson, he's an elder now, and I hope he's going to be with us as long as he possibly can, but I am a defender of truth. I am a son of Ogun. I must tell the truth no matter what the consequences are. And according to William Pepper's book, not my words, his words, according to William Pepper's book, from what I read, it clearly alleges that the good Reverend Jesse Jackson was an accomplice to Dr. King's murder, that in some way, in some shape, in some form, directly or indirectly, he aided and or abetted the execution of the good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Those are not my words. Read the book and you will see them for yourself. I'm paraphrasing, but when you read the book, you will come to the same conclusion based on the testimony and investigation of King family attorney William Pepper.
You heard about how Malcolm X kids, they suing behind their dad murder? If I'm not mistaken, they suing the NYPD, the CIA, and
And
the
the F,
FBI.
yes.
You heard about that?
Oh, with regard, indeed, with regard to the Malcolm X family's, El Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz family lawsuit against the New York Police Department, the bossy department of the New York Police Department, the CIA, the FBI, the U.S. Department of Justice, every party they named, I supported, Art. I can't think of a family in American history that has suffered more than the family of El Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz. Malcolm's father was murdered doing work for the Right Excellent Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. His uncles was murdered. At least one uncle, I believe, was murdered. Malcolm was murdered in political work. Uncle murdered in political work. Father murdered in political work. Grandson apparently and allegedly murdered in political work. You know, one of the sisters passed away not too long ago. I think they lost one or two of the sisters. I think one of them was incarcerated at one time. Betty Shabazz received almost no help. Rest in peace, Queen Mother Betty Shabazz. She received almost no help in, raising his 6 daughters after his death. That family suffered, Art, like no other family I know of. Dr. King's family suffered, but Coretta had the support of the Black church. She had the support of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. There was some help. Betty Shabazz had almost no help. Coretta Scott came to help her, but she really didn't have no institutional support. Even though Malcolm helped to build his former organization, I don't think they donated anything to the upkeep of his widow and children. So Betty Shabazz was pretty much out there by herself, and those children were too. Remember, she died. She was murdered in fire. Look at all them deaths, Art. The father, the uncle, Malcolm, the grandson, the wife, the mother, Betty Shabazz. Look at that. 5 political assassinations in the same family, Art. So I hope that Malcolm's daughters and grandchildren get all that they're suing for. I hope that Benjamin Crump doesn't take more than he should in representing them, because this right here, No disrespect to Benjamin Crump, but this right here is a lawsuit for the people. This is a lawsuit for one of our greatest legends and heroes and ancestors and freedom fighters. This is a lawsuit for one of the most victimized political American African families in the history of this country. So Ben Crump, don't take the normal attorney payout, bruh. Give that family all that money and just take a nice little chunk. That's my hope for attorney Benjamin Crump, because this ain't about no payday for no attorney. No disrespect to him, because he's a respectable businessman. But because you fighting for Malcolm's family, I don't want the attorney walking away with 40% of this. Maybe 20%, maybe 20. I would prefer he only get 10 because of who it is. I think he's gotten enough money, through the years representing the families of those murdered by the police. But no disrespect to Ben Crump, but it is my sincere hope that they win it all, and that Ben Crump, out of respect for the life and legacy of El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, recuses himself from accepting the normal amount that lawyers tend to take from a legal settlement.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how that turns out. I hope they get their money, man. But I want to ask you about Serena Williams. You seen these pics that went viral of her skin? She got lighter.
I want to say this, Art, because as a third grader in North Carolina, I dedicated myself to the mental health of African people, of helping our people. And I've been in this line of psychology, mental health, my whole life. And so I want to say this before I give my comments on Serena Williams. And I'm a fan of Serena, although I don't approve of the bunny hop, obviously. If there's any celebrity out there, any celebrity that don't have someone to talk to that they can trust not to repeat or release, I want them to know they could come and talk to me. I will be the life coach for any black celebrity who needs somebody to talk to and don't have them. Because our celebrities live in a bubble, Art. They can't get a regular therapist because did you know confidentiality in therapy, Art, ends when your life ends. So if I'm your therapist, Art, and you die, God forbid, you unalive, you leave tomorrow, not you, but somebody else, hypothetically. I can tell everything you told me in therapy the next day. Do you feel me? So a lot of these artists, they don't want to go to a regular therapist because they know if they leave here early or even under certain other legal conditions, they could be compelled to release their notes in the dialogue of therapy. So if Serena Williams need a conversation, Sister Serena, I'm here. Nobody would know about it. Kanye West need a conversation. I'm here. Me and Nick Cannon, right? And shout out to Nick Cannon for this. We had an open conversation on his platform, about his life. And it went really, really well. And I respect Nick because he bore his heart to the whole world. And I just think there's a lot more celebrities out there who need that kind of dialogue. Maybe not in front of the world, as brave as Nick was able to do it, but just a conversation with somebody they can trust. So I want black celebrities to know that if you need a confidential life coach, you have Dr. Umar. You know what I mean? I just need that to be out there because a lot of them are hurting, Art. And we fail to realize that behind all that money, there's a lot of pain and pressure, a lot of pain and pressure. So with that being said, I saw some of the photos of my sister Serena. I am not going to disparage her. I'm not going to insult or humiliate her, but I am concerned. I am concerned about the drastic change that I have seen in Serena's appearance. I don't like it. I'm concerned. Is the health okay? Whenever we see, and she's a billionaire, she's a billionaire. So whenever we see very wealthy Africans married to non-Africans, even though he got his own money, it becomes a concern for us. And so I'm just going to pray for the sister, hope she's well. I'm going to hope that sister Venus is looking out for her. I hope she has a bunch of black women around her, that will help guide her through whatever she's going through. Maybe she's just experimenting, with a new diet. Maybe she's just experimenting with some cosmetic surgery. Maybe she's just having a little fun. I don't know. But Serena Williams, we care about you. We love you. We want you to be healthy and safe. So whatever you're doing, if it's not healthy, please stop it. You don't need to change the way you look. I've always been in love with your body because you are the textbook definition of 5'5" thick in the thighs. Leave the thighs alone, Serena. And I'm just going to wish the best for her. But I have seen the pictures, Art. I'm not going to speculate on it. I'm just going to pray and hope Venus is looking out for her little sister and that the rest of the family looking out for their sister, because there's other sisters too, I believe. And I just hope she got a lot of friends around her, because one of the mistakes that black celebrities make, they surround themselves with a whole team of non-Africans. I see this on a regular basis as I interface. It's not good. It's not good, because all of those non-Africans are around you for business purposes only. Look at Michael Jackson. He had an entourage of 100 people everywhere he went. Only like 5 of them were black. Who do you trust? Who's going to be the one to save your life when the time is right? Jamie Foxx said what? My daughter was there. Jamie Foxx said my daughter was there. And in so many words, Art, Jamie Foxx was kind of saying that if my daughter wasn't by my side, they might have let me pass on. That's what he was saying. Jamie Foxx is like, without my black daughter, who knows what would have happened to me? What did he say? He said I was in that coma. And then I think he said he didn't have to wake up. I got to watch the whole special because I only saw clips. But he said something to the effect of, I didn't have to get out that coma, or I never had to make it out that hospital. He basically said that he was bouncing. He was playing around with his life. Or should I say they were playing around with his life. He had his black daughter by his side. Every black woman needs a black woman by her side. Every black man needs a black woman by his side too. Black women are the bringers of life, and therefore they are the greatest nurturers and protectors of life. If I'm ever in a life-threatening situation, I want an army of black women around me. The brothers might be too jealous and they might wish me dead. The non-Africans might be so hateful, they might wish me dead. But black women, and we got some trifling ones, don't get me wrong, but in the average scheme of things, black women are going to be the ones to save our lives. And that's another reason why we need to be married to our own, because they the only ones that we'll be able to trust in the end. Jamie Foxx's daughter saved his life. Andrew Schultz has been trying to get me on his podcast for the longest, and I don't think I'm going to do it, because I was sent a clip of Andrew Schultz not more than a few weeks ago making some very disparaging remarks about black women. And then I was sent another clip a few days ago about some disrespectful, sexually charged comments about what he would do or could do to Kendrick Lamar. And I think he was making the joke that Kendrick isn't particularly masculine. This is not me. This is Andrew Schultz. I interpreted his commentary as being suggestive that he doesn't see Kendrick Lamar as being a particularly masculine male, and that he could probably bully him or dominate him in any way, whether that was a physical altercation or a sexual altercation. He was making a joke of it, but I think everybody got the point. I didn't appreciate that. No black man will ever be comfortable with any man, especially a privileged Caucasian man, making jokes about what you could do to me if you wanted to in a sexual way by overpowering me. I didn't think those comments was appropriate. I didn't think the comments he made about black women were appropriate. In my opinion, Andrew Schultz is getting too comfortable with his commentary on African people. I'm not going to say it's borderline racist. I'm going to say it is definitively racist. And I would say in many respects hypocritical, because if a black man made those same comments about a European Jew, if Kendrick made those comments about a white artist, if Kendrick made those comments about Jewish women, I'm sure Andrew Schultz's community would be up in arms. I'm quite sure the Jewish community would not take kindly to a mainstream black podcaster making disrespectful, stereotypical jokes about Jewish women, or making disrespectful, sexually suggestive comments about a very popular male Jewish recording artist and what he can do to them if he ever had the chance. Even though it was a joke, it was without question laden with a lot of historical and stereotypical innuendos and energy and assumptions that I didn't find funny. And I'm sure if the shoe was on the other foot, the Jewish community wouldn't find it funny as well. I didn't appreciate it. And I don't think I'll be going on Andrew Schultz's podcast anytime soon. He would have to clear that up first. He would have to apologize, clear it up, and then maybe I would consider joining him on the podcast. But I am not about to give him my audience after the comments he made about my brother Kendrick. Even though Kendrick is a bunny hopper and I take issue with that, he's still a black man. And I reserve the right to defend the integrity of any black man until they're proven guilty. Just like with Sean Carter, you understand, Jay-Z asserts his innocence. I'm going to stand with him until the opposite is proven. So I didn't like it. And Andrew Schultz needs to clean that up if he ever wants Dr. Umar to come on his podcast as a guest.
How you feel about what's going on in New York with the guy Luigi? He killed the healthcare CEO.
Yes, sir. First of all, I want to say it's never good news when anyone loses their life unjustifiably, whether they be black, white, yellow, brown. Okay. It's not right. And so for the death of the CEO of the U.S. healthcare group, I'm sorry for that. From what I've seen, he didn't do nothing wrong, didn't deserve it. It's just not right. So I want to say that so I'm not insensitive to the loss of life and tragedy, for any family. Now, with that being said, Art, I'm having some trouble believing that Luigi Mangione was the actual assassin. I'm having trouble with that. First of all, y'all say that he came into New York a couple days earlier. He was up at 6:44 a.m. on December the 4th, and he allegedly unalived Brian Thompson, which was the late CEO's name. And this is the largest health insurance company in the United States by you. So this is the CEO of the largest health insurance company in the United States. He's staying at the Marriott, I think, in New York City. So allegedly, Luigi, 26 years old, who attended school right here, University of Pennsylvania. He was an engineering student. He comes from well-to-do parents who are linked to the real estate industry. So this wasn't no poor kid, no stressed kid, no struggling kid. He did have some medical issues from what I understand that distressed him a little bit. But a lot of people have that and they don't go take out the CEO of the largest health insurance company in the country. So anyway, Brian Thompson, the CEO of U.S. Healthcare, was unalived at 6:44 a.m. And I believe that was Wednesday, December the 4th. 6:44 in the morning. So Luigi came down there, prepared the whole thing, took his life. And here's the part, Art, that really got me. This is why I don't believe this. New York is the busiest, largest city in America. How did he get 5 hours from New York City to Altoona, Pennsylvania? Altoona is central PA. That's near where I went to high school. I went to high school in Chambersburg. So he ended up 5 hours away from the place of the assassination. He didn't have no high-tech gear or none of that. And you mean to tell me with the type of surveillance y'all have over New York ever since 911, y'all couldn't find the person who did this within minutes? Are you kidding me? Within hours? He got 5 hours away, Art, and y'all didn't get him until I think he was arrested on December the 9th. So 5 days and 5 hours away, and they say they got tipped off with a phone call, and that's how they arrested him. Art, I'm not buying it. I know they showing photos of him with the gun, but we live in a world of artificial intelligence. We live in a world of Photoshop. They can make anybody look like the killer if they want to. And guess what? He's pleading not guilty. And his lawyer said, Art, the other day, his lawyer said he hasn't seen a single piece of evidence connecting his client to this assassination. He was seen when they took him into court, Art. He was very angry. And you could see him yelling something out of his mouth. He said something like, nobody, I forget his exact words, but he said something to the effect that nobody with common sense or in their right mind will believe this or something like this. And even in court, he wouldn't even remain quiet. His lawyer had to tell him to be quiet. I believe he's being scapegoated. Now, check this out. Because whenever you deal with assassinations, you have to deal with the cover up. You also have to deal with the timing. Brian Thompson, the CEO of the U.S. healthcare group that was unalived, he was on his way to a U.S. healthcare group investors conference, Art. A very important investors meeting. The question becomes, what were they going to discuss at this investors meeting? Who stood to lose something because Brian Thompson was coming to the investing meeting? Who stood to gain by him not being at the investors meeting? And who amongst the U.S. healthcare group needed him to be unalived for whatever reason? Remember, when Caesar was assassinated, the entire Senate orchestrated his murder. The white power structure killed Brian Thompson, not Luigi Mangione. The question is, does Luigi Mangione and his family have enough resources to take on the United States government? Because look what they did to James Earl Ray, Art. He didn't kill Dr. King. Even Dr. King's family tried to get him out of jail. They couldn't do it. The guy who they said killed President Kennedy didn't kill President Kennedy. Some of the people who killed Malcolm got off scot-free. I mean, just look at the history of assassinations and cover-ups and plots and planning. Do you know that they were already psychologically profiling James Earl Ray? And you're going to read this when you read the book, The Assassination of Dr. King by William Pepper. They were already psychologically profiling James Earl Ray to be the fall guy for Dr. King, Art, at least 2 or 3 years before he was the fall guy. Did you hear what I just said? 2 or 3 years before King was murdered, they was already setting him up to be the fall guy. So when I look at Luigi Mangione being blamed for Brian Thompson's death, I believe they was already psychologically profiling Luigi to be the fall guy for this thing. And this is why, Art, I don't associate with people I don't know like that. You got to be careful not to form bonds with people and start hanging out a lot with people you don't trust, because this government, as I was told by an FBI agent to my face, an FBI agent said, Dr. Umar, you can never be too careful about protecting yourself, because if they can't find any dirt on you, they will manufacture it. They will make it up. You got CIA, you got FBI. They control the media, Art, so the media going to do whatever they want. You only got 6 companies who run all the media in the world. You got Bertelsmann, you got Comcast, Walt Disney, the News Corporation, you have Universal, and there's one more I'm leaving out, Art, Paramount Global. Them 6 companies control 95% of everything you watch, everything you read, and everything you hear. And that's another reason why, Art, I believe that, going back to Jay-Z for a minute, I believe that, as I told you, New York City Council passed that law to go after Puff and Jay. I believe that because Weinstein, Cosby, and R. Kelly were already in jail. They were already convicted. They needed that law so they could go after Sean, Combs and Carter. They said, we got Cosby, we got Kelly, we need Combs and Carter. We got Cosby, we got Kelly, we need Combs and Carter. And here's the thing, Art, because they control the media, they could have swept that Jay-Z allegation under the rug like they swept Robert Kraft allegation under the rug, like they swept Ben Roethlisberger's allegations under the rug, like they swept Marv Albert's allegations under the rug, like they trying to do with Vince McMahon. This never had to come to light for Jay-Z. That tells me, Art, somebody is jealous of Jay-Z's success. Somebody is jealous of Jay-Z's climb. Somebody is jealous of all these deals Jay-Z is getting, and we ain't talking about no black person. No black person can make all this happen. There's some white folks who want to see Jay-Z fall. Now, Jay-Z ain't no race man. Beyonce is more of a race woman than Jay-Z is a race man. I say that respectfully, but I believe Beyonce care more about the people than Jay do. That's just the way it is. Jay-Z's not a race man, but that don't mean he ain't got enemies. He's still a successful black businessman who a lot of people want to see fall. This don't happen unless somebody wanted to see him fall. The New York City Council never amends the gender motivated violence protection law. They never add this 2 years of going back in history to find any perpetrator who ever abused you, and you could drag them into civil court for some money. There's no need to do that unless you know who you're going to use this for. I'm telling you, they targeted Puff and Jay right after they finished with R. Kelly. Once they finished with R. Kelly, they said, we got Cosby, we got Kelly, we need Combs, and we need Carter. I hope Kanye West is keeping his nose clean. I hope Tiger Woods is keeping his nose clean. I hope Tyler Perry is keeping his nose clean. I hope LeBron James is keeping their nose clean because they coming for them next. They don't want any young black billionaires in the United States of America.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. But before we end this interview, I know you had some advice you wanted to give the parents, right? About their kids getting suspended.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Art. We are living in an epidemic where black children, boys in particular, are being suspended and expelled from schools at alarming rates, Art. Alarming rates. I was just on the phone with some parents the other day where their son might be getting expelled from school. Like, this is a big deal. I need black parents to understand something. Whenever your child is suspended from school, it can only be for a maximum of 10 days per offense. You can never be expelled for you can never be suspended for 11 days or more. Never. The law says 10. They can be suspended for 5 days, 7 days, 9 days, 10 days. They cannot be suspended for 11 days, Art. So if you ever get a suspension of more than 10 days, you need to contact an attorney, contact Dr. Umar, contact the superintendent of the school board. No child at a public or charter school in the United States of America can be suspended for more than 10 days at a time. If they want to remove your child from school for 11 days or longer, that is what we call a temporary expulsion, Art. Temporary expulsion. And the only body that can temporarily or permanently expel a child is the school board. If you're ever given an expulsion hearing before the school board, understand you have a right to bring your own witnesses. Understand you have a right to question the school district's witnesses. You have a right to inspect any evidence, video evidence, circumstantial evidence, material evidence, and you have a right to defend your child at the expulsion hearing. A lawyer would help, Art, but you don't have to have a lawyer. You have a right as parent to cross-examine any witnesses against your child. You have the right as parent to bring forth your own witnesses. You have the right as parent to inspect any evidence around the case. And you have a right to argue your child's innocence. I recommend a lawyer, but you don't have to have a lawyer. I also recommend, Art, that if you get the expulsion hearing and they gave you no time to prepare, which they normally do, Art, they'll give you a notice on Monday that your son's expulsion hearing is on Friday. Whenever you get an expulsion hearing, if you're not prepared for it, Art, tell them it needs to be rescheduled because you gave me no time to prepare. I need 2 weeks to prepare. You have a right to do that. And if you ask for a continuance, they have to give it to you. They cannot proceed if you've given them a reasonable amount of time. You can't call them today and say, I want to reschedule today's expulsion hearing. But if you contact them as soon as you get it, you have a right to delay the expulsion hearing so you can get a lawyer or prepare yourself and your child. So that's expulsions. And that's for charter schools and public school, Arts. Private schools can do what they want. That's for public and charter. Now, suspension, which is a less aggressive form of punishment. When your child is expelled, you have a right to three things. Your child has a right to three things. Your child has a right to know the charge. They have a right to know the evidence against them. And they have a right to argue their innocence. And you have a right to challenge the integrity of the suspension and the innocence of your child. So when you show up for a suspension reinstatement hearing, Art, or suspension hearing before the removal of school, you have a right to argue the facts of the case. A suspension is not a foregone conclusion if you dispute the validity of the facts. A suspension is not a foregone conclusion if you dispute the facts of the case. You can challenge a suspension. You can have it removed from your child's record after the fact. So let's say your son get suspended, Art, for 5 days. And you believe that the suspension was a frivolous one, an unfair suspension, an unjustifiable suspension. If you find out after your son has served the 5-day suspension, you can have it removed from his record. It's never over until it's over. You can get a suspension already served removed from your child's record. Please understand that. And every black parent, Art, every black parent should have a copy of their child's private school, charter school, public school, independent school, parochial school, a copy of the student code of conduct. You need to read it. You need to know it. Why, Art? Too many black children across this country are being suspended and expelled from school for offenses and for the duration of time that's not even required in the code of conduct. Our children are being expelled temporarily, which is what? Removal of a child from school for 11 days or more. Temporary expulsion. Permanent expulsion, permanent removal. You got black children being temporarily expelled, permanently expelled, and suspended for offenses that should have only got them a warning, should have only got them an after-school detention, should have only got them a parent conference, should have only got them some other minor punishments. They are suspending our children and assigning them time based on how they feel about our kids. They are expelling our children for how they feel about our kids. Make them follow the code of conduct. Black kids are being punished by schools because black parents don't have a copy of the code of conduct. Black parents aren't reading the code of conduct, and black parents aren't holding these schools to what is written in the code of conduct. And one more thing, Art, please, please, please tell your children that they have a right to plead the fifth in school, Art. Your child has Fifth Amendment rights in school. Yes, they do. Your child cannot be compelled by the principal, vice principal, dean of students, classroom teachers, hallway monitor, sports coach. Your child cannot be compelled to incriminate themselves inside of a school. This is U.S. law. A child can plead the fifth, that they have a right to remain silent, that they do not have to incriminate themselves or testify against themselves. Make sure your sons and daughters know that, because the school is not going to tell them.
And the last thing, what's the 3 biggest threats for African Americans that you wanted to explain?
3 biggest threats for African people, Art, as we go into 2025. This is for the American African branch of our family, the continental African branch, the European African branch. I was just with our Australian African branch, Central South American, Caribbean, Canadian, South Pacific, and of course our Africans throughout the continent of Asia. Food, land, and life. The 3 biggest threats for African people going forward are food security. Most African people in the world, no matter how rich they are, including our celebrities, are dependent on non-Africans for their food. We do not have food security in Black America. We do not have food security in Africa. We do not have food security in Central South America, the Caribbean, Europe, or Canada. This is a problem, Art. We need to start having conferences on food security because African people do not have food security. And to make it worse, Bill Gates is in Africa now trying to convince the African Union to force indigenous African farmers to stop using traditional organic seed and to only use the genetically modified seed that Bill Gates wants to sell, which has been proven in lab mice and rats to cause cancer. So we have a major issue with food security for the African race. We need to start having conferences on food security for the African race. Land security, Art. Land security. We already know they're gentrifying Black America. They're trying to take all the land from Black people. They're gentrifying the Caribbean islands. When I was in St. Croix in St. Thomas this year, U.S. Virgin Islands, I learned of an act that the United States government passed for the U.S. Virgin Islands called the Derelict and Abandoned Property Act. This allows any white person to come to the Caribbean islands, find a property that's in disrepair, fix the property up without permission from the owner. After you fix the property up, you can charge the owner for the amount of the rehabilitation, Art. And if the owner of the property, who never gave you permission to touch their property in the first place, if they can't afford to pay you what you paid to renovate their property becomes yours. You talk about a land grab, bro. They doing this in the Bahamas. They doing this in Bermuda. It's not called the same thing in the Bahamas, in the Bermuda, but all over the Caribbean, the former European colonies, there are scams and agendas in place to strip Black people of their land, Art. In Africa, they're doing it. Even with the Chinese taking up so much land, the East Indians taking up so much land, the Caucasians taking up so much land, the Arabs taking up so much land. If we are not careful, Art, the African race, globally, all of us, we might be a landless people in the next 75 years. We might literally go into the 2200s. This is 2020, the 2100s, which is the 22nd century. We're in the 21st. We might go in the 22nd century as a landless race. This is 2024, going into 25. We got 75 more years. 75 more years, and we might go into the 22nd century, the year 2100, as a race without any land. And once you don't have no land, Art, you have effectively been made a slave again. A race without no land? You a slave. What is one of the main things they required in America in order for you to vote when they first created the United States? You had to own property. You had to own property. They understand that power comes with property, and they're trying to strip every Black person in the world of property. We need our African leaders to stop selling off African soil, stop leasing off African soil to non-Africans. Everybody in Africa who's not a Black African is an invader or a colonizer or a descendant of an invader or a colonizer. And the last risk and threat to African people as we move into the next year are food security, as I said, land security, and life security. All these killings of African people, poor health care, all the Black people I see dying of cancer, Art. And I have to, of course, go to my late beloved aunt. She lost her life to cancer. Her funeral's tomorrow. We're losing too many Black people to preventable diseases, strokes, heart attacks. Jamie Foxx with the stroke, my auntie with the cancer. All of us have people we losing to homicide, suicide, reckless behavior, mental illness, poor diet, preventable disease, Art. Life security is a risk for African people. We are dying too young and dying too soon, and we need to do something about it. And the first thing to do about it is to start building our own Black communities, our own supermarkets with our own food, our own hospitals, with our own doctors, our own schools, with our own teachers, our own banks, with our own financiers, our own manufacturing and distribution industries, so we can employ our own people and have it delivered by our own people. We don't need Amazon. We need Blackazon. Look at all the jobs, Art, we would have for Black. Do you realize there would be no unemployment in Black America if we had our own Black Amazon? Art, we're about to spend $20 billion on Christmas gifts. $20 billion across Black America on Christmas gifts. $20 billion. What we need Amazon for? We don't need Amazon. We don't need UPS. We don't need DHL. We don't need the US Post Office. With all that we buy, Art, if we created our own global marketplace like Amazon, like eBay, our own global marketplace, we can ship and shop and float and fly and drive our own merchandise to African people around this country and around this world. We are our own solution, Art. We got to get back to the village. It is the village that gave birth to us, and it is the village that will rescue us. Appreciate you. Your followers can follow me, Instagram, Dr. Umar Johnson, Facebook. I think I'm blocked. TikTok, Prince of Pan-Africanism with a K. What else I got? Twitter, at The Real Dr. Umar Johnson. Go to my website, drumarjohnson.com, and make sure you subscribe to my mailing list. I'm going to start sending out updates. You want to know what's going on with FDMG and me, click on my social media or my website, click on my bio, click on Linktree, click on sign up for the mailing list so you can never miss out on what we up to. Peace and Pan-Africanism. Happy New Year to the entire African world.